Okay, can we do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Cassidy,
Yes.
Councilmember Dan Hahn,
Present.
Councilmember Melinda Cox. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Cox is not present today. Councilmember Julia Stubble. Present. Councilmember Josh Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor White.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. How's this sound? I've got a different microphone. Is that coming out okay? Okay, great. All right. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Great, moved by Councilmember Larson, seconded by Councilmember Stubble. I don't think there's any discussion needed or amendments. I call for the question. Councilman Larson.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, next we have communication from the floor and some new audience members. Thanks. Great to see other folks here. A reminder to all, please silence your cell phones, and also if you need to have conversations during the meeting, please excuse yourself and leave the room and move yourself a ways around because the sound travels in here for that. But if anyone has public comment, please approach the microphone, state your full name for the record. This meeting and comments are electronically recorded. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. So if anyone wants to come forward, please do. Oh.
Hello, my name is Kara Kolovich. I live at 967 Hobson Street, and I am commenting on myself tonight and representing another organization later this evening, but this is just myself. I am commenting on the parks plan that was reviewed last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. After reviewing the parks plan, there are many elements in there which I do like. It seemed to follow a lot of the survey results. One in particular that stood out was, and this is a quote, respondents consistently emphasized the importance of preserving riparian areas, planting more trees, and minimizing overdevelopment to protect the charm and ecological health of existing park space. So I thought that was really well represented in Dillon Park, the Ambassador Green Space, and Antelope Parks, and overall just planting more trees, such as the bike park and Goodrich Park. However, they also mentioned a top priority being improving existing parks and minimizing large-scale development, and a moderate priority of adding new amenities and facilities. So I don't think that this was adequately represented in the Papoja Park, where there are major facilities going in with 3 softball fields and a pickleball court, and it doesn't match the use of that existing area, where you think of a lot of areas that we currently have traffic and sports fields, like North Park, you have the middle school right there, so it already gets a lot of traffic. City Park already has a lot of through traffic and attendance in that space. But this area on the north side just doesn't receive that amount of traffic, so it feels inconsistent to be bringing that in. And then also, if you think about sports fields, you're also bringing in big stadium lights and all of the other infrastructure that has to go with those. So instead, I would propose you all working with the school district who owns those current lands. And I know that the report said there's some issues with the geology of that area, but maybe that's a different look at how you can bolster those existing fields and put them to better use instead of building 3 whole new softball fields. Similarly with the pickle courts that are already existing, there's a whole field to the back of them that's not being used at the high school. If there's need for more pickleball courts, you could expand them to the back, and the city could help pitch in for that with the school district if needed. There's also, I know that the gentleman up here with Aries last time, he said trying to use fields for multi-use. So maybe there's some reconfiguration of the Little League fields that could also be worked with the softball fields, and just trying to rethink that instead of overdeveloping when we don't necessarily need to in that area. So with that, I am done. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Lander City Council. My name is Monica Leininger, and I live at 380 Poor Farm Road. I am also commenting on the Parks and Recreation Plan, and I want to start out by applauding the city for purchasing that land. I think it's a really beautiful piece of land, and where I live, I see a lot of people enjoying it. And I also recognize that if the city doesn't do something with it, you might down the road, if things get tight, end up selling it. So appreciate, the thought that's gone into the development of that park. My partner and I, who is more shy than me, weighed in throughout the public comment hearings in the summer. And then I read the synopsis of those public comment hearings, and it seems like people really do want to preserve the natural space of the park. And the written plan said that half of it would be natural space and the other half would be softball courts and, playgrounds and whatnot. But looking at the drawn out plan, it seems like a lot of the park space is going towards those sports fields, and even the lake included, or the pond that would be used to irrigate that park. I would consider that part of the infrastructure. And I guess I just worry about maintenance of that over time. I think we see local revenues declining, and property tax cuts will certainly make that issue broader. And so I would just really encourage the city to think about that and think about how people really do enjoy the natural space of the park. I think a path would be great. I think a playground for the children in the area would be great. But I'll say right now, it seems really ambitious and, in my opinion, a bit of overkill. And I would also encourage the city to think about ways to reduce sort of the change that we're seeing in the area in terms of people coming through. Maybe appropriate signage would be good, so people don't go down to the end of Poor Farm Road and think that that's the access to the park. There's that one sign, but maybe increase that, or maybe put in recommendations around lighting and reducing the lighting towards nighttime, because a lot of people live out there because they really love the rural character of the park. So thank you so much for accepting my comments, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina Kolovich. I'm also here to comment on the Parks Plan. Thank you very much for, I live at 49 South 2nd Street here in Lander. Thank you for taking time to listen to me tonight. While I have been to several city open houses and commented on the master plan, somehow I missed the part where I could submit ideas about parks and recreation. So now I'm somewhat late to give my feedback, but this relates to the new Paposia Park, where I see there are 3 new baseball and softball fields. I think efforts should be made to rehabilitate the existing fields at the Lander Valley High School and leave this area available for an outdoor swimming pool for use in the summer. The existing swimming pool is very busy, especially in the summer, where a second outdoor pool could be used for more of a recreational open swim and be an attraction for Lander to make people stay and have a good, there's several communities around the state of our size that have outdoor swimming pools, and they're a gem for people and the population to use. I realize pools are expensive, but funds from the recreational mill levy could be used, as well as a fee structure to support it. While I realize softball has an economic development argument behind it, an outdoor pool would serve more of the population of Lander. In the event this idea goes nowhere, I believe at least a well-designed splash pad and more natural landscaping would be preferable to ball fields and give the children of Lander a place to cool off in the summer instead of the E. coli-ridden river and ditches. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey there, my name is Griffin Lawrence. I live at 460 Washakie Street. I really appreciate you taking the time to seek public comment. I am also here to comment about the plans for the Paposia River Park. My wife and I go there pretty much every day, and I really love that area. And it was really exciting to see that the city wants to put more of an investment into it, because it's a great spot. And with a little bit of love, it could be a much nicer park. Having said that, I am going to echo what everyone before me has said. 3 softball fields seems to me like it's not what the public is asking for with that park. In particular, if I think a good way to determine how people want a space to be used is to look at how they use it when they're given almost no guidance. And as someone who goes almost every day, what I see in practice is people go and walk their dogs and wander around and go down to the river. And that actually seems like it's potentially a really good use of the space. In current practice, I think most of the people I see there are there with a dog because the city's dog park is basically the outfield of a softball field that is neglected and it's not appealing. There's nowhere to walk around, there's nowhere to play, and it feels dangerous when there's a game being played. So people don't tend to go there, and they tend to go to the Paposia River Park now. I'm not saying that that's what this park should be designated for, but it is currently what it's largely being used for, and I think that that's worth paying attention to. In addition, I do just feel that giving, roughly half and like very much the center of the park to big development of softball fields, it's going to require a lot of maintenance. And in the public comment periods, this isn't specifically what people asked for. If we look at the sticker boards that the Parks and Rec Department put out, 26 people voted to turn that park into a natural area, which actually would be more just keeping it a natural area. And as opposed to those 26 people who voted for that, only 7 people voted for baseball or softball fields. So to see the majority and center of the park actually dedicated to something that's going to be expensive to set up, expensive to maintain, and the public hasn't asked for, it strikes me as maybe over-engineering or replacing a solution with a problem. I do think creating more structured areas for people to play and for folks to get outside is a fantastic investment. And I'm really excited to see what the city does with that park. I would just love to see a little bit more care put into that part of the master plan. And with that, I do want to say, looking at the rest of the city master plan, I love it. It's amazing. So much work and care has gone into it. And I'm really excited to continue to live here. I love the direction the city is going and really appreciate all of the care that you've all put into it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Thank you for having us here. And my name's Scott Roop. I live at 396 Poor Farm Road. I'd like to agree with all these comments on the park situation, particularly Paposia Park. I also want to bring to attention that the city has not done anything to address the privacy and the security concerns of the residents around the park. I have had my granddaughter accosted and the person threatened to kick my dog in the middle of my yard. They couldn't find the park. They're looking for the river walk, which doesn't exist. Got mad and threatened us. Also, if you drive north and 2nd South Street, every dead end alley is marked. There's no marking for Poor Farm. I wish you guys would consider this. I've actually had someone get high centered at the end of our road. That's when I brought it up to the city. And they put a concrete barrier finally. So please take this into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else want to come for public comment? Great. I'll say in summary, thank you for coming and speaking about that. I do want to reiterate that what was proposed is a plan, and it is simply that. The city's not in a position financially or personnel-wise to start making any substantive changes to our park plan. So just know, we don't know when we'd be able to start making changes to our parks. I don't see it anywhere on the near horizon, and the far horizon's a pretty distant one. So please understand there's no immediate plans to start making changes. So with that, we'll move on to mayor and council updates, and Councilmember Larson, I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. On July 26th, the Fremont County Solid Waste District is having a hazardous household waste disposal day. And so if any of you have any treasures laying around in your garage, old paint, nuclear waste or anything like that, you know, that you'd want to get rid of, I guess now is the time to do that. Uh, The, let's see, we'll hang off on that one. Okay. Um, We're hoping to do a fly-in on the 9th of September. And just want the city's blessing on that. And we'll go forward. We've got the biggest share of our funds put together on that, and it's not going to be a huge deal, but just probably a I killed the pancake breakfast, car show, and that kind of stuff, and so it'll be pretty low key, but it's always fun. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cassidy.
Mayor, just two things really quickly. I was able to meet with Lance and do a tour last week. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Look to maybe do one more here soon, and also with Chief Wall. Thank you as well. I was able to do both those last week and try to get a few more in before we depart for a few weeks.
Awesome. Way to dive in. Councilmember Danhon.
Thank you, but I really have nothing, but I just want to tell everybody that if you have not been up to Red Canyon, it is spectacular. The flowers and it is as green as a leprechaun. It is beautiful up there. That's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things, really just one. The Energy and Environment Task Force I've been attending and meeting, and I won't report back because it's on our work session agenda here later tonight. That's been the main topic of discussion. The tree board has also met, called the Garden Expo tabling that they did there a major success. So thank you, Kevin, to you and your staff for your help with that. And the city funded through the Parks and Recreation Department a large order of trees that were then given away. And I guess that was a pretty hot booth for folks coming up to get a tree and hopefully add to our community forest here. And thank you again, Mayor, for doing the Arbor Day proclamation at that event as well. They were grateful. As we all know on council, we accepted the resignation of one tree board member. So that position will be open. I haven't talked with Ann about her plans for advertising and how long we'll advertise, but stay tuned. And if you know an arborist or somebody with interest in tree management or just an interest in trees, have them join the tree board or apply to join the tree board. And then the board discussed some tree replacements on Main Street and talked with Kevin about where there are some gaps or some trees have been cut down and what species would be, beneficial to that area, given the limitations of planting a tree on a highway and with businesses nearby. And also there've been a pretty exciting, I hope I'm not ahead of my skis here, Kevin, a conversation at conceptual level about Baldwin Creek Elementary and the lack of shading on that playground. So a light consultation was done. That's not our purview as a tree board, but we have experts on that board. So I guess they walked around with school staff about what are some ideas for getting more shade on that playground through some trees. That's all I have for the tree board and my liaisons. Thanks,
you.
Mayor.
And Councilmember Josh Hahn.
Yes, Mayor, I just have a couple things. First one for interim chief Wah. Do you guys have a protocol or standards for speed limits in town when going to calls? And it's not like I'm on the fire department, so trust me, I get it, but it seems sometimes they're going a little fast and the little kids are out on bikes and stuff. So I was just wondering.
Specifically, there's a unwritten rule. So I've been vocal and maybe not completely to all of council. I'm currently in the process of rewriting our entire policy. Some of it is the basis of the social media issue that we dealt with. We are currently operating under 2015 policy, which is problematic to me. Policing has changed a lot since then, but those are some of the items that I'm covering. I actually have a class scheduled for our staff called Under 100. It's a class to get law enforcement deaths under 100. They have not been that since like 1950. 80% of that class is about their driving and their response. So that's some things I've approached since I've been here. If there's specific incidents, please, I would like to know them. I'd be more than happy to look into them specifically. Our the type of call, as you well know, being at the firefight, right? The type of call kind of determines the speed, but the overall general rule is no.
Okay, yeah, well, I know like when I was assistant chief and train captain and everything, I always like hammered our guys, when we respond and like, it's not, 'cause, like lights and siren doesn't give you a
Not even close.
freebie on
No,
anything. I mean,
not
you're-
even close. It does
y-
not.
And, I mean, I don't call anybody out, like, you guys do a superb job, and everything, but like responding to a wreck the other night, they were going a little fast down Fifth, and it was like, because I was turning to go to the hall, and by the time I turned from Fifth onto Wood and started going, they were turning onto Jefferson. And I get it, man. You're amped up, you got something going, you want to get there and help somebody, so it's, I just didn't know if there's a rule or like a standard or
The
not.
standard right now is 10 miles an hour above the speed limit
Okay.
at max, unless it's life threatening.
Okay.
But these are, as you well know in your industry, these are things that we have to revisit very regularly, right? And
Yes, sir.
as our calls are picking up and summer is here, the guys are getting a little egregious and probably excited to work because
Right.
we are the safest town and we do have a low call volume. So when they do get to go, they like to go. So those are things we have to revisit regularly. So,
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Lance, this next one, I was gonna ask Regine, but I don't, maybe you would know. What is the difference between agricultural zones, industrial and commercial?
As far as setbacks or getting into the Title IV definitions?
Basically, the businesses ran on them. This is in regards to, it's brought to me, I believe he talked to Julia as well, but, like a mobile sawmill
Oh,
out on it's agricultural, it used to be R5 and it's bordering R3 right now. And
right. And I think if we get into each one of those specifics on what's allowed and not allowed, there's definitions, accompanying each one. So I think that's what you're looking at is the Title IV, and then breaking down like ag versus industrial versus what's allowed, what's not allowed, and then if it's needed to permit or what other uses it may be.
Okay.
But I think that one's pretty specific as far as what's going on in planning commission and then being appealed right now. So it's kind of,
Yes.
I guess that one, Adam, I don't know how much.
There we are. It's really not appropriate to be discussing in this forum just because it's
Okay.
before the planning commission and it has been appealed.
Yes. Okay.
But I'm happy to go through those with you and we can go through Title IV if you want. at
Yes,
some
sir.
point. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You good? Okay, all right. Great. A few things for me. One is I was checking the WAM information today, and one of the presentations is going to be on healthcare and EMS districts. And our very own Mike Jones will be one of the panelists for that. So I think that's going to be interesting information for us, as that's obviously a concern. Graduation parade, I believe, is tomorrow, 6:30. So expect to see everybody on Main Street cheering for all the awesome grads. And then, of course, graduation is Sunday. See you there as well. Continuing on the high school theme, congrats to the girls track team. Knocked it out of the park for sure. We've got interviews for some of the treasurer applicants scheduled coming up, probably like 10 days, 2 weeks from now for that. So excited to get that information and hopefully get someone on board to start cross-training with Shari. I don't think we can officially do a Vulcan mind meld, but something comparable for that. LIDA had its big event, Wyoming Outdoor Weekend, last Saturday and Friday, which I think went really well. They had the wild game cook-off. That was really well appreciated and attended. And I want to give a shout out to Game and Fish because without their partnership, I don't think the Wyoming Outdoor Weekend would be nearly the event that it is. They're pretty awesome in that. Glad you mentioned, Councilmember Stubel, about the trees on Main Street. That was also a question that Griff Sprout had, and he would love to provide some information on some better options for trees in general, and especially for the Main Street trees. So we've got lots of knowledge that we can turn to for that. And then lastly, I know in our last meeting, I kept talking about at this meeting, we try to go through all of the action steps and try to consolidate that. And looking through the 9 pages of the Excel spreadsheet, realizing that would be probably the most painful meeting we would ever attend, not to mention, yeah, be like watching paint dry. So instead, what I'd like to propose is sending all of y'all a spreadsheet for y'all to go through. It's still going to be a bit of work to go through all the different things. There are a number of priorities there, but for us to give a little more specifics to city staff about both time frame and priority, and then also a place to add notes for that, or suggestions or refinements on that as well. And then be able to consolidate it and give it back to all of us before we try to adopt it. So basically doing doing it as homework. We can certainly take a week or two to be able to do that, and then consolidate and then bring it forward with a little bit more granularity. And I think that way we'll provide better direction for staff on that. So, and I think that is it on my end. Let's turn it over to staff. Interim Chief Wah, what do you have?
Not a whole lot. I mean, moving forward with training and things, I would offer out, Councilman Larson's been doing after action review. Councilman Cassidy came to a supervisors meeting. I just would like that to be known as an open invite to all of you sitting up there of any trainings that we're doing, any meetings that we're having. I welcome all of you to be a part of it, be into it, see what we're doing, see what we're learning, see how we're moving forward. If I could gently approach, probably by the next city council meeting, I'll have a presentation for you. I know there's been some conversation about our dispatch services and what's happening with the county. I just need a little bit more time fiscally and financially what all of that looks like, but my plan is to brief all of you front to back fully of why we are doing what we are doing and where we are headed with it. So it's a conversation that I would have with any of you if you so choose at any time. But other than that, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Any questions for Interim Chief? Yeah, Councilmember Danon.
Yeah, yes, I was just gonna make a comment. I'll tell you what, I think you have your hands full with the traffic is crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable. You can't hardly go anywhere. You know, we've had all these accidents, but people are, it's amazing. I mean, they're driving 35, 40 down, Fifth and down Main Street, and I can't believe how fast everybody's driving now.
Well, I think Councilman Sergeant Wells and I actually had this conversation today in the sense of typically we approach this issue at the very first snow, right? Because it's Wyoming and people forget how to drive in the snow. And for some reason this summer, it feels like people have forgotten to drive what it's like in the sunshine, I guess. I don't know. The sun shines out, they feel good, the vitamin D, I'm not sure, but I can tell you, sir, we are extremely active traffic right now, more so than usually this time of year. It's pretty crazy. I agree with you. We had a DUI team deployment that we did here Saturday night with our multi-jurisdictional team. As a team, we made more traffic stops in Lander on that DUI team than we ever have at any deployment over here. I mean, it was pretty crazy. And we had 8 people show up. Wyoming Highway Patrol finally came to the table and wanted to be a part of it as well. And I think we made close to 65 traffic stops here in 4.5 hours.
Wow.
I mean, it's just the traffic for whatever reason right now is crazy busy. So
It is. Thank you for that.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay, Lance, we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, Mayor and Council, nothing specific for me tonight, but would happy to give any of you guys the same thing that Councilman Cassidy asked for, which is a ride along, go see projects, go into talk with supervisors, see different areas. So if you guys are feeling a bit like you're out of the loop or just want to see McFarland Drive project, the hospital project, Lincoln Street, we can get you a vest and a hard hat. Happy to take you through there. So just reach out. Happy to make some time in the schedule to make those things work. And then you guys could maybe that helps clear up some of the questions that we have at the meetings, or maybe it brings more questions, who knows, or things that we need to talk about more. So just want to offer that as well as a opportunity for council people to be more involved if you're interested.
Great. Thank you. Lance, one thing, probably everyone's noticed that kind of a moving forward and some new things being parked on Lincoln Street and gravel pile. Do you have any indication of when this block of Lincoln might start getting torn up?
Yeah, I think that we just issued the notice today that we're entering a closure here on Second Street. So they were always planning on doing the first and second blocks together, doing the best they can, confined to the space on First Street between the two blocks. And as you can see, they're very consolidated in that area. They need more room to work. And so they'll come out and get full closure, at least partial closure to alleys, and then move their work zone out so they have places to put bedding. So we always expected them to take a little bit more between Main Street and then beyond if needed. So I think we're going to see them close Second Street for a duration up to 2 weeks. Want everybody to be prepared for that, hoping that it goes quicker than that. But the idea being Third Street will then be open, and then as they move their traffic control, they'll have to open blocks behind them. So we're always looking at a way that they can get around, or that the ambulance can still get around our closure and communicate appropriately. And then hopefully businesses like the Lincoln Street Bakery can use Third Street and find a place to get the residents in. We're focusing a little more on pedestrian traffic control, and then ways that we can keep the public safe of not walking through the zone, and then control. So that was a lot of our meeting today, was doing proper road closures for vehicles, but also high pedestrian traffic, and then getting people access. So they're thinking through that now as far as what that closure looks like, but we should expect them to keep moving through this area next, and then keep hopping down the street as they're moving from First to Ninth.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions for Lance? Okay. Kevin, anything you want to say now, or wait till you get to be the star of the show?
I can wait till the new agenda
Okay.
stuff and update you there.
That's what I figured.
Thank you.
Adam,
I have nothing tonight unless somebody has a question for me.
questions for Adam? Okay. And Rochelle?
Nothing.
Nothing till you likewise get your time, which actually is our action item here. So new business, consider and award the request for property insurance proposals for a 5-year term beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2030 to the low bidder Tegler and Associates in the amount of scratch that, $139,515 for FY 2026 and authorize the mayor to sign the insurance services agreement. If I get a motion in a second, and then we'll turn it over for Rochelle for more info.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, we got a motion. Y'all are shy on the second. Moved by Councilmember Stubble, seconded by Councilmember Larson. And Rochelle, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. As I previously mentioned, the property insurance was previously awarded by the council for a 5-year term. Tegler previously held it. I think the city has had Tegler services for approximately 9 years now, if I remember correctly. This year it was up. It's up July 1st. It was advertised in the newspaper according to state statute for the 2 consecutive weeks. I also called every insurance company in town that comes up under Google: Burns, State Farm, Farm Bureau, Corey Slingerland's outfit, not sure what her exact name is, Worth, Smart, to let people know that we would be looking for proposals. We received 2. I also called WARM, which is the Wyoming Association of Risk Management. Their process was a little bit different. They required an application, so I did do an application so that I could get a quote from them. What came back in, we were asking, according to our bid materials, for around $73 million worth of coverage. As you can see, the coverages came in the bid tab. Tegler came in at the 139,515 for about 75 million, close to 76. When Warm sent their their quote in to me, it wasn't based on the same amount of coverage. So I called and spoke with him, and he said in general, it's about $2,200 per million. So I extrapolated out the math. Both companies have an online learning system for safety purposes, which we have in the past paid separately for. So that would save the city in the realm of $10,000 to $12,000. So I looked at Tegler's that Tim was kind enough to send me, and I also looked at the one that Warm has. Both of them would be great. We've worked with Tim before. He's always been very responsive. He's local. Anytime I've had a question, he has been very responsive and takes the time to sit down and explain things to me. He's been great. He is the low bidder for the same amount of coverage.
Questions for Rochelle?
And he's here tonight if anyone has questions for him.
Great. I'll say thank you for your due diligence in this. No, that was a ton of work to try to, I mean, it started as not even apples to oranges, but more like apples to, TV screens and trying to actually get information to be able to do a more direct comparison was not a simple one for that. So that's great. All right. So hearing no further questions, we'll do a call for the question, starting with Councilmember Han.
Yes.
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 Motion passes. And next on our special regular city council meeting is adjournment. That doesn't mean we're ending our time together, but can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the. first
And a
meeting.
second.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Josh Hahn, seconded by Councilmember Cassidy. Call for the question, Councilman Larson.
Yes.
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 We are adjourned from that. And so now we will start on our work session portion of the meeting. All right, first up, new business. Again, none of these are voting items. This is an opportunity for us to learn and ask questions. Thank you, Mr. Tegler. Kevin, you are up.
Well, first of all, thank you, council, for the last 7 months. It's been drinking from a fire hose since I left, or not left Weed and Pest, but just increased my my job portfolio. So, from city Weed and Pest to rodeo grounds, airport, parks and rec programs, it's been a pretty steep learning curve. And, but great people. Thank you for the comments tonight from the public. It's interesting, when you throw a parks master plan on top of everything else. It's been an interesting 6-7 months for sure. Start with the parks themselves. Obviously, as Dan said, we're getting extremely busy in town. The parks are no exception. I think Memorial Day weekend, we had 42 people camping up at the end of City Park, which is great. It's kind of a double-edged sword a little bit. As we all know, the free camping and the amenities in Lander are publicized widely across the country. And a lot of folks come here, I think, journey here for that reason, a place to park and to enjoy the camping. And we try to make that as pleasurable as we can. It gets awful crowded in City Park at times. You're going to hear probably a lot more comments and questions on the Hermansky property. What's the plan for that? And certainly isn't in my lap. That's also a community suggestion thing. What I hope doesn't happen is that turns into a parking lot. I hope that stays kind of like some of our public comments, a green space of somewhat. It's interesting. We have some opportunity to start irrigating at least City Park for sure with our well system. And that's in the works right now instead of using treated water on our grass. And that's in the works. We're looking at, there are 3 wells on the Hermansky property itself, 2 of which I think are somewhat viable at the moment. We have the 2 wells in City Park. that we will be irrigating the upper end at least this summer with. We're looking at tapping into those wells to hook up our automated system at some point. That's in the works with a local contractor to at least get that planned out and mapped out for now. Get rid of the quick couple sprinklers that take a lot of labor and time
Yeah.
to set. And so it's been interesting there. Lots of great things going on. If you haven't been to City Park lately, just City, I'm talking right now, there's new bleachers for the Little League field. There's a new scoreboard there. And most the scoreboard, thanks to Central Bank and Trust and the Elks, pretty much paid for. If you go out to the softball fields, we do have 2 new scoreboards out there, and we just did new chain link for their backstops. And those look really nice, and they're much safer. There's a lot more work to do out there. So kind of in contrast there, it's just a talking point. What do we do with our existing infrastructure? I knew when I came into this job that Parks and Rec have been neglected for some time. Our equipment is old. We're working with one mower right now. That's a 2012. One is down, and I think it's a 2015. We definitely need to budget for some mowing equipment. The more we expand, obviously, we're going to have to take care of it. We haven't had a sweeper that's viable. That's fall leaf pickup, brush pickup, those kind of things. Had a demo come down from Billings here a couple weeks ago, and it was a self-propelled sweeper. Wouldn't work for us. It didn't pick up what we needed. But he does have one he's going to come down and show us that's a pull behind. With the tractor, I think in the fall, we'll not only be able to get the multitude of leaves and sticks in City Park, but also North Park, all the other parks where the leaves pile up so much, and keep them much more clean in the fall, and probably save us a month's work of man-hour work for that. So that would be awesome. Probably going to, in the near future, if we're going to keep our grass mowed on the 60 or 65 acres of green space we have in town, we're going to have to invest in some equipment and make sure that we at least have the tools to do what we need to do. I want to praise the 2 or 3 staff members full-time we have. They worked their rear ends off, worked all Memorial Day weekend, and I think some of them had 1 day off this month, right? Summertime for Parks and Rec is a 7-day-a-week deal, especially June and July coming up, the Brew Fest, the Climbers Fest, the 4th of July picnic, 4th of July rodeo. That all takes time to empty trash, clean toilets, maintain those things. Some positive things that have gone on. LOTRA approached us with a proposition to just make some small improvements to the rodeo grounds. Laura stepped in with $30,000 worth of money, and if you haven't seen the rodeo ground bathrooms, they're completely revamped, not new stalls, but with new partitions, new automatic hand washing stations like at YDOT stations, painted. The outside will be painted here soon and be ready for the 4th of July, and very functional for at least the 2 days of multitudes of people we get at that rodeo. So again, we've got a lot of work to do at the softball fields, but we talk infrastructure, and those fields were built on a swamp. Everything that we put in there will eventually hydraulic out of the ground unless a lot of money is invested in fixing that drainage problem out there. So the question begs itself, what do we do with that? Do we move softball fields? Do we put the money in to fix the drainage problem and then improve them? As Parks and Rec Director, my first priority is safety of our kids that are playing out there. And we've had some unsafe things, even this year with the new lighting that we tried to rebulb things. Some have been exploding, and those are just old wooden poles with bad seals. And I don't want a child getting hurt. And so if There's going to be some conversations that need to take place if we continue to have issues with that. You know, we may have to think about playing only day games on that field somehow, move up an hour or something like that, but that would be hard to do. I know Leanne's looking at me saying, I don't know if that's doable. We do have an electrician looking at the issue with that middle field lights. We tried to get the poles straightened with the power company, and that happened this fall. We got one of the vac trucks stuck. It was wetter than heck. And they said, come back when it's dry. And they haven't been able to get back yet to get those poles straightened and foamed in. So, you know, new lighting, if you go to Musco, you're looking at $250,000 plus, you know, for new lighting. That's not money that we have sitting on the counter somewhere. So it's a fine balance. We try to work through things, make them as safe and as enjoyable as possible for our public. That includes the green spaces, the trees, and thank you, Julia, for telling us what the good work the tree board's done. I also went out and talked to Griff Sprout about some possible replacements of trees on Main Street. And he had an interesting suggestion. He said, we need to go through every tree on every block and just kind of categorize it and say, you know, when might this one reach its age of maturity and fall over or be sick, and just make a plan over 5, 6, 7 years to start maybe replanting most of those trees on Main. And he had some good suggestions with the ones that need replaced now that are just stumps. And I've talked to him. We'll come back to the tree board with that. And so a lot of cool things going on. Just interesting stuff all over the Dillon. Our infrastructure in our parks is old as well. Dillon Park sewer was basically, because the ground moves up there on a swamp so much too, the lines were pulled apart. We did get that fixed, so Dillon Park bathroom is functional again, and a lot of people use that park more than you would think. It's rented almost every day. Almost every day that park is rented out, the gazebo in the area there. But that is now functional and working. At some point, some consideration is going to have to be given to the 2 brick public restrooms in City Park. We do have new sidewalk and drinking fountain in the upper bathroom at the very end of the park. You know what I'm talking about, but it's old and falling apart. Certainly not handicap accessible so much, but it's old. The middle one gets used. You all know by the Lion Shelter how busy that one is. And so we have crews in there every morning at 6 a.m. before people get up from their camp and try to make it clean and as pleasant as we can. And again at noon and restock it with things, but that's a summer deal. It happens every day all summer long. So those are just some of the highlights. I'll be happy to entertain questions about parks at any time. Rodeo grounds and airport are, I've got a meeting coming up for the 4th of July festivities to see what improvements we need to do behind the bucking chutes and things like that. And we do have a plan to make those safer for our contestants and our contestant helpers in the bucking chutes so they don't fall through a plank and get hurt. Airport, we're working on making sure the weeds and the tall grasses are down on the runways and taxiways, and that'll be coming up this week and next week. Again, we have aging equipment to try to do that with right now. Chris borrows our weed and pest tractor and flail mower, which is old. And to knock that stuff down, we're working on a solution there as well. With a brush hog perhaps pulled behind that tractor that would make it a little easier. Quite a few rocks in there. We get some community help to pick rocks out of there. We wouldn't probably tear equipment up quite so bad in between the runway and the taxiways and things. So that's part of that. We've had great community help with projects this year. Kiwanis, Rotary for sure. The benches all, I don't know if you noticed on Main Street, were sanded and resealed. And if you see a Rotary member, make sure and thank them for that wonderful job they did with sanding and sealing those with linseed oil, and they did a great job. We also had the same groups, plus the Elks, come up and do a city park cleanup day where we worked a little bit on Hermansky Park. We sealed the stage so it's ready for Lander Live. And community members came out in droves. I think we had 22, like maybe help me, Mayor White, 22 or 24 people sign up to come up that day and help leave sticks, sealing things, new benches. That was done. So,
Yeah, plus folks at Paposia River Park doing
and
cleanup.
Paposia River Park
Yeah.
as well, exactly. There's, I don't remember how many, she's gone. We're at Paposia River Park, but probably 8 to 10, and picked up 11 bags of trash. You don't see it down there flowing around, but 11 bags of trash and siding and different things that were in there, and tried to make that hospitable and pleasant down there too, especially for the landowners next to it. So good stuff there. Programming, we have all of our kids programs starting this summer, actually a week from Monday. The kids programs will start T-ball, pickleball. We have, of course, baseball and softball in full blast right now. There's a myriad of other things going on. We're going to offer track and field this year out at the high school. We've got a great group of mostly high school seniors. They can be 16, 17-year-olds. They're going to run a lot of those programs. So the question mark on Sinks Canyon Camp still hasn't been answered with the U.S. Forest Service. I know we're not going to sign a release of liability or with them up there. So we're still planning out what Sinks Canyon Camp's going to look like for the 4 one-week sessions we have of that. Some of it could be Worthen Meadows, some of it could be South Pass, doing some trips with kids, just getting them out, socializing and doing educational, productive things. What else? Last thing, I guess, under my realm is weed and pest. I do have one summer crew came on today. I know there's spurge everywhere in town. There are weeds everywhere. I'm trying to focus first on our walkways, our trailways, and getting the noxious weeds knocked down there. We have substantial private landowners in town, especially down here by the river, where weeds are a problem. Every weed in the Wyoming weed book is on that property down there. And so I'm working out a way, and we'll get councils, fill you in when we get there about how much private landowners, what responsibility do they share in the town and their portion of paying for noxious weeds on their property that are spreading to other places. So that's going to be a big issue, and I think it's going to take a little time to get there. And it would certainly take help from our private landowners that have those weeds, even though theoretically it's on the Wyoming statutes. You have leafy spurge, it's the law to control it. You have to. But it's like not enforced. So I don't know really who would do the enforcing of that. Our job right now is just our public spaces is to keep things as clean as we can, and we'll work all summer to do that. There are mosquito larvae hatching right now. I know the water's been cold, but I just dipped today down here on Barney Park, and I think one dipper I had about 400 mosquito larvae just in one dip. So they're coming. We're trying to catch them before they fly, because that's the best bet we can do, keep them where they're contained and not bothering people, and try to do 70% of our work on the larva stage and not the adult stage with the fogger that everybody thinks is mosquito control. Most of it's done. People don't know about it. They don't even see it happening. So we do have a new fogger. So there's 2 wonderful functioning foggers now that will still plan on being out on Wednesday nights after dark, depending on mosquito numbers. And that's still in the works. We still honor our no spray requests until we find West Nile virus in any of our population here. And there's protocol for that. We find West Nile, the Public Health Department out of Cheyenne gives us some suggestions, let City Council know, and then generally no spray requests go away, and Public Health becomes a little more major concern for that. So all of our trapped mosquitoes are identified by species. One species alone carries West Nile virus. That's Culex tarsalis. And we do have those. They're generally more late June to early July mosquitoes, a problem. But we take those mosquitoes, send them to Cheyenne, and they are tested. And anytime there's a positive hit, it'll come right back to us and tell us your population's positive for West Nile. So when that happens, we'll certainly inform the public and council, and we'll go from there. Keep our public as safe as we can. So taking up way too much of your time, but those are the highlights. We've had a great 8 months. I'm still drinking out of a fire hose, so bear with me, but I'm doing the best I can. Mayor?
I can empathize. Councilmember Larson.
Yes, Kevin, thanks for what you're doing. You know, that really has gone a long ways. I've talked to a couple of the seniors that are working in the parks program this summer, and they're just really excited about it. You know, they're looking forward to it, and just I think that's great to use the kids and to put them to work and keep them busy. The other thing that I've got a question on is I was out to the baseball or the softball fields, and when you straighten those poles up, is that just spray foam that you put in there to, how long does that stuff last?
Yeah, I don't know how long that lasts. Lance could probably answer that as well as I could. It's a company out of Douglas that basically straightens old power poles.
Mhm.
And that's who does that. They come in and use a vac truck around the bottom and pull the material out, straighten them up, and then fill them with the foam. So I don't, with the water, and I'm not exactly sure how long those are gonna last. There definitely would be more safer that way than with the
Right.
loose dirt around them the way they are. Some of them are tilted at a pretty good angle now. But we're working on it. We don't want a pole falling on anybody,
Right.
obviously.
I understand that. I was just wondering if there's any history behind the foam and, as far as longevity and.
I could find that out for you and get back to you and see what they say. So
Yeah, it's supposed to be suitable backfill material that's water resistant, so it shouldn't be deteriorating underneath there. So,
Okay.
I guess the hope is that it's gonna branch out how much, is being backfilled around at more stability and
Mhm.
maintain. So I don't see it deteriorating underground or us having to do it every year or anything like that. But I would say this is a 10-year solution is what we're hoping for or more.
That's good then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Danton.
Kevin, thank you.
you're welcome.
I have a question. I've wondered about this for a long time. North Park, the skateboard park. Is there any special maintenance for that, or is that just nothing to it?
Actually, the skate park has pretty little maintenance as long as the graffiti and the things stay, like couches and stuff stay out of it, right? So there is a drain in the bottom of that, and we have a spigot. I don't know if you've ever been by the side of it and seen that little spigot that's off to the side in the grass. So when that gets full of water, we'll open that up, and there's a pump on a switch. So when it gets high enough under there, underneath the skate park, it'll open that spigot up. And, people are good. Most people, come by and say, oh, somebody left the spigot open. We better close that. And no, it's functioning the way it should function. So, I was looking just, the other day at that. There's some cracks, and I wasn't part of building that. You need a cement guy probably to look at that and see if there's any maintenance needed. They're not huge cracks, that would pretty much destroy a skateboarder, I would think, but they're cracks that are all over that, kind of like a mosaic of them. So I would, in my mind, I was going to visit with somebody that knows a lot more about concrete than I do and see what we need to do there. We may need to put a sealer on there
Yeah.
or something like that. I don't, but I'll find that out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Comments?
Mayor?
Councilmember
Mayor?
Stubble.
Thank you. Director Green, I just want to say, I mean, we are so lucky that you wanted the job and took the job. It's been a tremendous amount of work. I've seen you snow plowing. I've seen you on the mower. Clearly, you're in countless meetings. Yeah, your knowledge is remarkable for this stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The question I have, Mayor, is about the options presented for us by Director Green on camping at City Park. Did we want to discuss those tonight?
I
Or is
was
that-
hoping that was also going to be part of our conversation tonight.
Okay.
Is that what you?
I'm
were
sorry, I
thinking
missed,
as well?
what was that about?
Sorry. The options that you presented for camping at City Park. I was checking to see if we were discussing that.
Yeah, my hope is that, but before moving on to that, likewise wanted to add my gratitude for all the work that you're doing and also Jason and Brett. Those guys are always in motion.
Thank you.
And understandably why. It's impressive what you're doing with a limited crew. And also you're right about City Park being appreciated by the public. One of the fellows that came over to help out on the cleanup day had stayed in City Park before. He and his wife are living in an RV now, renting out their house. And he's like, yeah, we've been through here before. We're on our way up to Alaska, spending the night. The ball games were too loud. That's where he first went. And then he saw these people doing stuff. And he's like, what are you doing over here? And he came and picked up a rake and started helping clean up the tennis courts and chipping in with other stuff. It's pretty awesome to see people's appreciation for what we have. So any other questions about what has been presented before we move into camping at City Park? Okay, so this is, I think this is from your email that you sent us about a month ago, 5 weeks ago, about the 4 different options.
Right. I think it depends. I think we could start the conversation by the activity that's going on at City Park. For just normal daily campers, we have it now above Lions Shelter parking up to the end of the park. And there's a little turnaround by that middle bathroom that a lot of bigger RVs and things park in there. Some of the smaller ones will park up at the end, and some will throw a tent out there by the upper bathroom and stay. And most of them are there at night and move on. We have had this winter a few folks that have decided that that's where they're going to park and stay for a while. And thanks to Kelly and his group, they 3 days is the limit, and they're supposed to move. And so he's helped us with that on several instances. We appreciate the police force's help on that. Where we get into, I think, a discussion is going to be Climbers Festival, Brew Fest, people that are going to want to camp below that area because there's so many people. Overflow camping is what I guess I'm going to call it. What we definitely want to try to avoid, I believe, is to keep campers well away from the playground at City Park. I just don't think those two mix well together. Kids playing and people coming out of their tents and whatever garb they have on or whatever. So try to keep everybody to the, I guess it'd be to the south end of the park, obviously. The big events, Climbers Fest is a big one. We've talked about overflow park or camping into Hermansky on the condition that we have whoever's organizing that event bring some porta potties up based on how many numbers they're expecting. I think that is not an unreasonable thought to be able to provide porta potties for the event. You know, if there's going to be 1,000 people there, you're going to want 20 porta potties in there and have them put those in there as event coordinators and make sure they're picked up when they're done. I think that's a viable solution. I'd rather not have people park right now in Hermansky, but I could see situations where overflow camping could be allowed for special events there that are huge. I don't, hopefully not a lot of people are camping for Brewfest, but you never know. But the Climbers Fest is the one that takes the park up number wise and camping wise tremendously. Most of those folks either camp in their self-contained RVs or tent. A lot of them are tent campers too, and they extend well down into the park. past the band shelter even. So those are some ideas. It's been suggested, should we charge for camping? And there's two trains of thought on that, obviously. Lander's the area that brings everybody in because we're free camping. I don't know if people come here just because of free camping. I think they come here because there's a lot to offer in Lander and a lot of things to do. And I don't know that $5 or $10 is going to kill anybody, you know. Toilet paper is expensive. The staff to clean bathrooms and replace all that's expensive. So those are just some thoughts. I don't have necessarily any plan. I mean, it's worth discussion though, in that park, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Do folks have the April 17th email up? And Councilmember Cassidy, okay, great. Got that as well.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Before I go into the nitty gritty of where camping, how camping, charging, I just want to double check kind of a point of order, I guess, that the rules for camping are enumerated in our resolution, 1321, I believe. And so we obviously will discuss tonight and express some degree of preference for our director to consider. But if we actually wanted to change the places that we're camping, that would be an amendment to the resolution. Is that right, Mayor? Or Attorney Phillips, you?
Yeah, I
Which
might have
one?
to punt that one to
Mm.
Adam. So if we change to
Yeah.
where, or is that simply park rules, which we change our park, well, I guess they are in that section of the ordinance. Or, excuse me, resolution. So it doesn't require the 3 readings. It would.
If it's in part of the resolution as park rules, then we only have to change the resolution, which does not require 3 readings. If we change the ordinance itself, 3 readings.
Yeah. So, correct. It would be a resolution.
Great. And currently just level the playing field here, the resolution for City Park. The rules for City Park stay overnight camping are allowed at those spots which are expressly designated and marked for that purpose. And no camping is allowed in the north of the park near the playground equipment. So the restriction on location, if I read that literally, is fairly small, really. At least it establishes, what you'd like, what we'd all agree to, I imagine, about the playground being expressly forbidden, but there could be other locations that we determine tonight we don't want. And so just wanted to name that that's then a resolution change we'd have to consider.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So I also think in terms of charging for camping, remember that one of the challenges with that well, there's 2 actually. One is we then become in direct competition with other businesses, which is something we want to avoid doing. The other part of that, then it changes our land from being tax exempt, or at least that portion, to taxable, which also causes some challenges for that. So with that, I'm curious to hear from council members before I dive in with my own thoughts about what camping might look like at City Park, what your thoughts are.
May I have a question? Mr. Green, you mentioned that you have some employees rotate at 06, I think, and 12 daily to maintain the restrooms. Is that correct?
Right. So when we get our summer staff on, it'll help a little bit. We'll have one person that'll go in and clean Saturday, Sundays, but it's usually a full-time staff member that has to be at least within phone distance, because there's situations where their first call to make is to Kelly's crew, and we've have people sleeping in the bathrooms. We've had people that are in various states of sobriety that are not always nice, and so it's an interesting dichotomy. I think that everybody focuses on that end. For the 90% of the time, most people respect the park and have a great time there and follow the rules, but it's a 7-day-a-week deal.
So during the high season, when it's the most busy, can you kind of give an estimate of labor hours per week do you think is contributed to that?
So just for the campers and the trash and toilets?
Yes.
It's daily. So Monday through Sunday, weekends are obviously bigger. So on a Saturday, Sunday, you're looking at probably a 6-hour shift. That includes Dillon, North Park as well, but making sure those restrooms and the rodeo grounds are stocked, clean. Most of the time is spent at City Park on the 3 public restrooms. We have it in the office building as well. Those are open. and they're warmer. You know, when it's a cold night, we find people in there in the morning. And, you know, it's just part of the deal. But, so weekends, at least 6-hour shifts, on the weekdays, at least half a day, hitting all the parks, bathrooms and facilities to keep them stocked and maintained, at least by one person, sometimes two.
Thank you.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes, we've discussed this charging for camping, you know, and I agree with what Mayor has said, that we've also put up signs and posters, you know, requesting donations. Do you have any idea, are we getting any kind of appreciable donations come into the city through those?
You know, that would be a Shari question, kind of. I don't get that report, what we get in on those donations. Maybe somebody has that other than me, but that's something I should look into. I know Shari said at one point that there were some donations that do come in.
It was pretty marginal the last
But it
that
was
I heard,
marginal,
you
right.
know, and I think that's pretty ungrateful, you know, for people to go and use the park and you know, can't even drop $5 or $10 in there and, you know, say thank you. But that's a real frustration.
It is, you know, logistically too, charging, I'm not sure exactly how that would work. That would take some thought. I know, you know, Forest Service campgrounds, they have the little ticket that you fill out when you come into the campground and you hang it on your lot, but really there are no painted out places for people to park. You know, I have lot 17. I'm camping there. That's mine for the night. They just kind of wherever they can find a spot, they find it.
Yeah, I don't think that we want to try and, you know, have the people or like you say, being liable for the taxes and so forth there, you know, but boy, if we could get, you know, guilt trip them or something into, you know, dropping a few dollars, that doesn't seem unreasonable, you know, to just volunteer that.
Right.
That's my 2 cents,
Great.
Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Danhon.
What are we doing with the Hermansky property? Are we doing anything with it? I know
Well,
they've been cleaning it up.
Yeah, it's awesome. We got it cleaned up. As far as development wise, no, I think that's under consideration, what we should do with that piece of the park. Most of what I've heard is maintain a green space, sort of expand the park as is with green space and probably some benches and, maybe some trails along the creek, and the tree board suggested some trees, other than natural Russian olives that come up, right, to plant along there and clean that up so people have, you know, I've never seen more dog walkers in a community in my life than Lander, right?
So
Which is a good thing. It's cool.
Nobody camps over there
But
then?
nobody camps over there, no. Camping is not allowed over there at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Larson.
One more thing, you know, I like your idea of using Hermansky Park for how about now? Okay. Yeah, I think that there's some parts there from Hermansky Park that work great for camping. Just my own personal things,
Okay.
personal thoughts.
There's, I think just, you know, we got a private landowner to the west of there that would probably not want people camped right next to his fence over there. I mean, you're right. I think that would have to be thought out and what works and what doesn't over there. I agree, John.
Lance.
I know this isn't going to be popular, but I'm going to bring it back. A few years ago, we had this worked out to then be able to charge events to charge their impact. So if you are going to allow tents and camping, this is a place to easily recapture those funds through the event itself and the size of the event. They're bringing in 500 tent campers, you know, you adjust your rates. And so at one point we had worked out the idea that a certain percentage was coming back to us. And that was how we were addressing the city park camping issue. When you guys had said, hey, we should charge for this. And it's like, well, our most damaging, high demanding times are around big events in the park when lots of toilet paper is going out. Our staff is there doing trash all the time. We have lots of additional camps there. So that still is an opportunity to think about this. I know that fee estimates are the next discussion, but that is a place where you guys can recapture directly from the event itself if you worked out the appropriate fees.
Yes. Councilmember Josh Hahn.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody wants something for nothing, right? But the taxpayers are having to pay for people that camp for free. And people are taking advantage of that. And, you know, the whole purpose of, you know, the property tax going down and all of that is to help the people because they're getting taxed to death, right? And then you have people just wanting to camp, well, they're using city sewer, they're probably using city water, which we all pay for. And then they're using, you know, the employees, and it's working them to death. There's got to be something we can do to either limit the amount of people staying there or make a little money back to help cut a little off of the, you know, make a little profit on it. I don't know. It seems like we keep giving in, and the more you give in, the more people are going to show up and want to use it. Pretty soon, the whole park where we'll allow is going to be nothing but tents. Then your grass is trashed, and you know, it's just one of those things. Like, what do you want the park to look like in 20 years?
So again, I think we're talking individual campers versus major events up there. You know, major events, there's certainly a possibility to recoup some money in our city coffers for those things. And that's been proposed, I think, in the fee schedule. We've got it in there, depending on the numbers, the event. So the individual campers, I don't have an answer for. I don't think that's going to go down anytime soon. I think the word's out and people come here because it's a place to park and stay the night. So those are tough questions, you know. Is the good nature of our city more valuable? I mean, through word of mouth and Facebook and all that, then are they spending a bunch of money at our businesses and that? I mean, the idea is still to provide recreation, right? But everything costs, right? We need to figure out a way that otherwise we're not going to have them. I mean, we don't have the money maybe to support all that, and then everybody's out.
Councilmember Stumal.
Thank you, Mayor White. I'm in agreement with a lot that's been said tonight, and I think that where I stand is I want to maintain the tradition of free camping. I'm not interested in charging for it, for the logistics, for the taxation, for the amount of staffing to enforce, a whole lot of complications there. And I think there is economic value, and I think there is value to the community pride and the community sense of community that we have from free camping. But I do want to reduce and address the real impacts that we're starting to see as those numbers increase, as the type of camping changes, I would say, as the length of time changes. So really excited to hear more enforcement is happening on the 3-day limit. That's excellent. I do think that I think we can get to a point of mitigating some impacts while maintaining the heritage piece here by reducing the locations and reducing the availability. Really, you know, diehard folks will still go there and camp. Others will go and see a crowded area in a smaller space and find someplace else. So I think I said it during our parks master plan discussion that looking at south of McManus Park, south of that walkway makes sense to me for the motorized RV camping, which I believe is actually the more direct competition we have with local businesses than tent campers. And having tent campers in that grassy area as well. I'm hesitant to go into Hermanski Park for tent campers just because the farther you are from a developed bathroom, the likelier you're going to have other issues. Folks are not going to walk, you know, a half a mile to the toilet. And so I'm really iffy on the Hermanski Park part, but I do think that the grassy area from the Lions down makes sense for tent camping, maybe some restriction on the stage, and for motorized south of McManus Park only. And that would be even more enforcement for a while the knowledge got out there, while folks who come back year over year, you know, see that they can't take the walkway, can't take the pathway and set up their chairs and set up their dishwashing stations right on a pathway system. But I see that as a solution here where we maintain some of what is excellent about it and we address the growing impacts that we're seeing.
Thank you. And thanks for the segue to what I'm thinking about it. We did not plan this. But I would like to get kind of granular and, if I had a magic wand, here's what I would want. And similarly, like, I know there's benefit to the public having a spot to be here, and they do support our businesses here. And there is increasing impact to our residents that I think, well, I certainly feel obligated to try to mitigate. So I'm looking at the map here. If I could have my druthers, this is what I would want to see, that on the riverside of City Park Drive, there's no overnight parking until you're south of McManus. No parking in between the ball fields overnight. No parking in the Fremont Street parking lot. And I would leave the Lions Shelter parking lot likewise open for the folks who are renting that, food trucks, et cetera, if they're having events. And so cars overnight being able to park on the west side, beginning from kind of where the sign is and the ditch on the south side of the Lions Shelter parking lot to the back of the property. And likewise, having some pretty specific areas about where tents could be. So north of the driveway from that little entrance into the private property, that's the in-holding there, tents need to be between the parking area and the first irrigation ditch. And then on the south side of that area, again, that's not where folks are having events or, doing whatnot, then there can be more tent parking there. So that would be my druthers for that. And I would also suggest that, especially with the prevalence of the Sprinter van kind of style, that again is why I'd say to be explicit about no parking in the Fremont Street parking lot overnight. And potentially we'd want to look at having no overnight parking along Fremont Street itself, because I think folks would likely then just move there and they still have easy access to restrooms. So I realize we're, but potentially what we're doing is dispersing some of the Sprinter van parking, and folks can park on our streets overnight about anywhere in town, but to limit some of how City Park is being impacted by that and local residents. So that would be, if I could wave a magic wand, that's how I would set it up. But I'm curious to hear what others think about that, because I don't have a magic wand. Councilmember Dan Hahn, and then Councilmember Cassidy.
I haven't been to like the beer fest but what I was wondering is when you say we have, the couple of events that I think are going to take place this summer, do these event holders, do they bring porta potties in? You don't have 1,000 people with one restroom, do you?
Well, we haven't required porta potties from these event organizers before, so those restrooms get waylaid, and sometimes people don't even make it to the restroom. They're doing their business around the park or in different places, so that's why it's an issue. So they're huge events. We need to, on the fee schedule proposed, provide certain porta potties for the number of people they expect at the event.
So that's your suggestion?
Yes.
Setting up, like, I believe you said 20 porta potties per 1,000 people or whatever.
Right.
I think we need to do that.
I agree. Actually, when Lance was talking about the fee schedule potentially changing, you and I were on the same wavelength. I think not just overnight events, but the large events, we should be requiring folks to have some porta potties. Lander Live has a few hundred people show up. There's also going to be the tour to Wyoming, staying in Lander for 2 nights this summer, the cycling around Wyoming event. And those big parties, or I should say big events, we should expect them to help with that. So let's hold off on more details for that before we get into the fee schedule component. But more in terms of camping, curious to hear continued thought to Councilmember Cassidy.
Yes, Mayor, I was following your descriptions on the map here. And I concur with all of those. I would only add that I think when we compress folks together, they're going to push the boundaries. And if there's no boundary, they're going to find the boundary. So specifically with the vehicles, is there an opportunity or potential to mark the side of the road for parallel parking? Because what they're going to do is if we compress them, they're going to nose in. Very likely they're going to nose in. Either they're going to go parallel to take up the river frontage, or the first person who noses in, they're all going to nose in, and now it's going to be problematic. So if there's any way that we could potentially mark spaces, and then that would have an enforcement requirement, et cetera. So there's a lot to that. But I'm concerned that if we don't create a boundary, they're going to create a boundary.
Well, and just to add to that, is the 2 or 3 private property entrances back there.
Yeah.
So we compress a lot of people in there. Those will eventually get blocked off, and we've seen that before.
Right, and if we mark those, then we're putting a quantity, right? We're putting a quantity and a limit on there, and we're figuring out a way to enforce that before we put any paint on the ground. Right?
Yeah.
But then we can kind of control that,
Yeah,
and negate it.
Would need a way that somehow permanently mark those spots. So you're right. Something that doesn't wash off or get blown away or whatever, right?
And then you can do the same for tents as well.
Yeah. Mayor,
Good
I
point.
would second that idea heartily. And I don't know, not the engineer here, but given still a dirt road back there, if you can't mark it, maybe there's a map saying these are the 20 these are the 20 campsites that are allowed, and it's not as perfect as marking it perhaps, but certainly not compressing all the existing demand into that area. I think we have to say X amount of tents, X amount of parking spots for RVs. Obviously the tents have cars. So I don't know what the quantity is still a quality experience back there and doesn't impact the private property owners, but we can figure that number out, I bet.
Yeah, and I think to address, Missy, there is our local folks that walk the sidewalk up from Fremont Street, and they get to McManus Bridge and do their walk. And there's campers in that upper area, and sometimes they see things they don't want to see. And so, I mean, by the time you start really narrowing it down, there's not going to be a ton of parking spots up there.
Yeah, it can definitely change things, but agreed. I think I've counted my high was 70 vehicles in City Park on a morning dog walk, which seems like an awful lot for that. So again, this is not a voting session, but generally can I get a sense of thumbs up, thumbs down for the specifics I just proposed? Folks can at least see where that leads us. So
Yeah,
great.
Mayor, if we could bring that to a draft resolution change or amendment, and I imagine Director Green, probably not for this summer. That's a bit fast to amend the
Right.
resolution, get the signage out and figure it out, but for next summer, perhaps?
Yeah, definite signage. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to make that work right now. I don't think we should probably do that in the middle of our busiest tourism
Yeah.
season right now, but give it a little more thought and planning, and I think that'd be doable.
Thank you. And thanks to all of us. Or I should say all of you for thoughtful questions. And, Lance, yes.
It's fine. Is the goal to provide Kevin less work? Is it like disturbance that we're limiting this on? I guess just some thought behind it changing from, I see this becoming a big enforcement issue, and we'll have to talk about that with the PD as far as signage and what we're doing every day versus the reasoning behind moving these cars. So I guess just some feedback as to the change in direction and what we're doing.
I would say yes to both, that it's in response to resident concerns that City Park is no longer resident park, especially along that pathway. And then also trying to find ways for, especially these larger events, to take some of the park staff responsibilities away. So if there were, more porta potties available during these larger events, I would hope that also makes it a little bit easier on your staff with not having 6 hours of bathroom maintenance all day, every day.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cassidy.
And Lance. And in my mind also, this creates a paradigm for future. So it's an incremental step towards additional control measures if required, right? So if you can move those folks down to make the city park the city's park, like we've discussed, and if that doesn't control or doesn't positively affect what we're trying to do, then if you have clearly identified and marked tent parking locations with associated parking spaces for their vehicles or their bikes or however they get there, and you have a limited number of parking spaces for RVs, and those are fixed in spaces marked clearly, then if you have to step into a fee structure, you've already got that in place. So that in my mind is an incremental step towards another solution if required.
I think the enforcement part, I don't know if it's going to lessen our workload any. In fact, yeah, I think, I don't think there's any clear-cut solution right here, but I've been wrapping my head around it and with a lot of people in this room, talking about what's doable and actually what's gonna help. So like I said, it's not a voting thing right at the moment, but maybe some thoughts, from everybody would be helpful.
Will do. Okay, with that, let's move on to the fee schedule update. So Lance, that is yours to take. Did you get voluntold for that, Lance?
No, I didn't sign up for that.
Oh,
So I guess happy to answer any questions, but the fees have been all, provided as far as feedback. There's new fees in there from the building department. And then Parks and Rec has adjusted their fees. I mean, these are small amounts of recovery over overall cost because we run a service business. And so these do not get you to 100% assessment like in the building department. I mean, goals are somewhere in the 30 to 50% range. If we can recover, fees and still provide service, that's what these do. So if you guys have looked through it and you have questions, happy to answer any questions you have, especially if it has to do with public works. But do my best to work through any questions you have.
so I've got one that I'll kick off. So on the third page of this, under park facilities, for the stage with or without adjacent park, and I'm trying to wrap my head around, how would you rent the stage without surrounding space? Like what? I'm unclear what that was.
That's a great question. I think, what that involves is, so if you're using the stage, you're not going to be over in Kiwanis shelter, right? So you're basically renting the whole park. So maybe that needs some thought as well. So like Lander Live, correct? You're renting the stage, but you're also taking up, is somebody going to also be using the shelter at the same time? Probably not, right? So I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, I mean, for an event like Lander Live, they are both using the stage and all the way to the Lions shelter. And, this is one of the questions that's come up before of like, what exactly am I renting? So folks are saying, well, we're renting Lions shelter, we're going to have this event, but we don't want food trucks to show up because we want to sell burgers. Like, well, I don't know that you can keep a food truck from showing up and parking in the public parking of City Park. Or if there are different events happening, well, how far does that go? If you're running the Lions shelter, it doesn't mean you get free reign of the playground kind of thing. So that's, but this one specifically, I'm just not quite sure what that's intended.
I apologize. I've got that was, Ray Jean's wording on that, and I need to sit down with her and talk that through. Sorry
Okay.
about that. I'll do that though with her.
Mayor, if I may,
Gotcha.
I question that one too, and I wonder if it's just a simple typo that it's stage with adjacent park and then 1 to 20, 21 to 150. That might be the fix.
I would say that's exactly what that's supposed to be, and we need to talk more about that. What we ran into with events is people don't want other competitors there. So Brewfest, if somebody set up and they rented the gazebo at the end of the park and start selling without paying their vendor fee, is that real fair? Like, how much of the park did they get? And so this happened last year where we had a baseball tournament going on, somebody rented the lion shelter, and then somebody wanted the stage all at the same time, different events going on in the park. And it's like, oh, you need to essentially charge a shutdown fee at some point if somebody doesn't want to have the baseball going on. And they were complaining about each other. That was some of the problem too. Like, we don't want this. And it's like, well, we need to charge an appropriate fee to get you control of all of that. But again, we're going back to your guys' previous comment that says the city's park, it's all shut down to the rest of the people at that point in time for any of it. So I guess to me, that's the thought, was trying to get the stage and try to lock down a certain area was the goal.
Mayor, a few other comments on that area. Our intentions that we just sort of put together would of course not be reflected in this document right now, but I want to name that right now we just talked about the porta potty rental being required for overflow camping, which is excellent, but sounds like we want to consider including that for events over 500 people as well. And I don't know that has to go in the fee schedule here and perhaps just in the permits. And I'm not sure which staff person to look at for that, but wanted to have that reflected someplace that over 500 people perhaps or 1,000 porta potties are required to help lessen that cost and staff time for us.
Yeah.
Mayor, I have another.
So that
question.
needs to, I mean,
Yeah.
that needs to be spelled out.
Yeah,
Great,
sure.
perfect.
Yeah.
And again, this all came
Mhm.
to be in here real recently, so.
Yeah.
My guess is, you know, we gotta put some numbers down there for porta potties. You have 100 people,
Mhm.
you need 5 porta potties.
That sounds great.
200 people,
Yeah.
you need 10, whatever that might be.
And then Mayor, if I may, on that same
Yes.
page, our field use fees, that's one of the changes here that $5 per player for youth baseball, softball, football, and soccer, $5 now, up to $10 a player. And I'm curious, this resolution will only have one vote. It's not an ordinance. What kind of outreach has happened to the associations and organizations that would be fielding that increase? Have we talked to them all?
Nice way to slip in a pun.
I'm sorry.
Fielding.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I had to go there.
So,
So
the question was, why the $5 increase?
No,
Or
not necessarily why. I think I understand the reasoning, but have we run that past the folks who will be affected? The organizations, the associations, the
the
league?
associations, yes.
Yeah.
So
What have we heard?
that being prefaced with the fact that we don't want to price any kid out of participating in an event, you know, so if they're unable, we do have the scholarship
Mhm.
issue there, but we want associations to start thinking about is how wonderful a place Lander is to be able to show up to a baseball field or a soccer match and have all that work done for you. It's
Mhm.
prepared, it's ready to go. Most communities, the associations take that on themselves.
Hmm.
And, you know, the $10 isn't by any means covering all the costs of doing that. But again, it's a service to our public. And they're more than happy to pay that per player. That I haven't had any pushback from that.
Okay, great.
Chalk's expensive, fuel,
Mhm.
equipment, labor, you know, those cost money. And again, it's not recouping all that, but it's also giving our kids an opportunity to do things at a reasonable
Mhm.
cost. If you go to Cheyenne, Casper, you're gonna pay $400 or $500 to play baseball. And I don't want to see, maybe more than that, I don't know. Way more than that, all right? So you know, Lander, we've always had kids be able to afford to do those things, and I think that's important. I think it's important to get our kids out there doing things that are healthy outdoors, and you know, as part of the service we provide, if we can't provide it, we can always up those fees and see where it takes us, but I think that's very reasonable, $10 a head.
And Mayor, if I may, I'm not opposed to the increase at all. I just want to make sure this isn't going to be a surprise when we vote on it for those associations and orgs. So you've run it past them, you've had some feedback that it sounds like it's livable at least, or
Mhm.
understandable. Okay, thank you.
And, you know, to that end, I'm glad you brought that up as well. I'm thinking about what Councilmember Josh Hahn said earlier of, you know, agreed with what Kevin's just said. I want kids to be able to play sports. It's important. Y'all know I treasure my time as getting to be a coach. And to what extent does the city subsidize rec programs to keep it low? So my hope is that this shifts over time to the responsibilities of clubs to do the fundraising so that they can provide the scholarships for the kids who want to play sports but don't have the means to do that. So earlier in conversations, I've heard somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30,000 has been invested in the softball fields. So just, you know, with 150 girls playing at $10 a head, that's 20 years before those funds would be recouped. And again, I'm not saying that's what our goal is, but when we look at the dollar price, and we're seeing that now about what it takes to maintain our fields, I would like to see our clubs be a more avid partner in that process personally. Not saying to go beyond that this year, but I think it's something we as a council should be thinking about. How do we you educate those clubs to understand at some point, this is going to have to be a little bit more equitable. We're not asking you to be a break even, but a little less on the shoulders of the broader taxpayers. So other comments, questions about the fee schedule here?
Are we limited to park facilities right now? Or
No,
the-
this is everything on the fee schedule.
Okay, well, then let me back up a little bit and go to the community center. We've got the best deal in the whole world for the community center. We've got the cheapest venue that there is. And I know that we're in Lander and, you know, we're supposed to do everything for free, but we're suckers. We are. We've got a great facility up there and, you know, going $100 a day increase, is better than nothing. But, boy, that's a bargain.
Are there different numbers you would propose for that, John?
$2,000.
Excuse me,
a
Councilmember
day.
Larson?
I don't think 2,000 is unreasonable.
Well,
Right,
that's,
good, yes. Yeah, and if there's a multi-day event.
quite a
um,
discount.
Yeah, there'd be a discount there.
Yeah, that would be quite a big jump. I think
It is.
we'd hear from
It
from
is.
our public about that for
I'm
sure,
sure we
to
would.
do that big a jump.
I'm sure we would.
Yeah, this is one where I'd love to get more information about what our overall costs are for running it, heating, cooling, maintenance, et cetera, versus what we take in for it. I mean, again, another place where I don't expect it to be a break-even endeavor. We know it's a loss leader for the community. It leads to hotels and catering and meals and gas, et cetera.
You just asked my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I gave.
Yep. I appreciate that about you. You're never shy with that. Yeah. Other comments?
Yes, Mayor, if I may, on the building fees, Lance, I'm trying to line by line this with our past building fee schedule, which is a separate document. Are there any changes here, or are we just incorporating this into the general fee schedule? Is that what's happening with seeing it in this resolution now?
I believe we're just incorporating what was, you know, separate fees and then getting it all in one place at this point in time. So did this align with what you were looking at before?
I don't want to be the definitive
Yeah.
every line, but it was looking like it, and I was just trying to determine if there were track changes that I
Yeah,
weren't
and I think
catching.
this was consolidation, trying to get everything in one place at one time and, but I can follow that up with an email tomorrow after I talk to Hunter.
Before we vote, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I
he
can
asked
just
if
think-
he should come tonight and now I'm thinking he should have.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks for letting us volunteer you, Lance. Yeah. Any other questions?
Mayor, I had one last one, and it is a segue. Well, it's not exactly, because our Title II is the last topic here, but I'm curious, it might be Regina or Shari, sorry. When was the last time we raised the liquor license fees, and how much of that is our discretion versus state statute?
Well, I'll
Is that?
have to ask Rochelle to answer that.
State
Yeah.
statute does set those fees within a range.
Mhm.
So I was actually in the Title II, so let me flip back
No
up to
worries.
what they've got
Yeah.
there. I did notice when I glanced at this, though, that the transfer fee was
Mhm.
listed at $200, and by state statute, that can only be 100. So that is my circle and the one there.
Got it.
Bar and grill licenses for the initial fee, I believe the initial fee could be at a max 10,500. So it's almost at the max for the initial fee right there. I think that, and I'm going off the top of my head, I apologize.
Not at all.
Club
Just-
licenses, microbrews, I think those are at the max for 500 for the initial fee and the renewal. I will check into what those ranges are and report back to you. I apologize, I don't know off the top of my
No,
head.
please don't apologize. That's a detailed question. I'd be excited to learn that before we vote too. Thank you.
But they are set by statute within a range.
There is caps. Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Yep, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
question.
Yes.
Across all the fees, and I don't know who maybe to address this to, it might be to Lance or everybody. across all of these fees, what's our North Star on these? Is it history and we're moving off of history and increasing off of history, or are we doing anything similar to like a market survey to see what people are willing to pay for the community center for one day? Or are we looking at comparable cities within the state, the county, adjacent states? What's our guide for all of these fees?
I would say a lot of it's history. And so you're stuck into what rate you've set in the past and, large adjustments. Some of these are new fees. And so they've been added in, but still trying to make things affordable. In certain departments, it's a certain amount of recapture and recovery. And so when you look at that budget and you see how much money you're bringing in versus where you're spending, a lot of this is about balance, like you're providing services. So I would say your North Star isn't just one singular thing. It's more so you're incorporating it all in. Like at the community center, John has a fair point. Like the last that I heard is that we're breaking even on maintenance, but we're not covering depreciation, right? So when you have to do a major project up there and we're looking at what we're doing, that's great that our year broke even on budget and running a community center, but you didn't put anything aside for when you need a new building or when it needs major renovation or a roof or whatever it may be. So you haven't set up, large plans, but you're also looking at competition within the area, like at the community center. What are other people renting things out? What is the main ballroom at the hotel look at? I know that those things have been discussed in the past, to try to become fair. But I mean, the reality is you have a bunch of staff who are qualified to do other things that are, trying to help you set fees, but none of us being, the deep dive experts in doing so.
Good question. All right, with that, let's move on to the Rocky Mountain Blue Sky grant pre-application. Yeah. Come on up and you'll know about our microphone system having presented to us before.
You're hosting each task force.
Yeah. While Kara's getting that, if y'all could introduce yourselves, because I don't think Councilmember Cassidy's had the chance to meet y'all.
Randy Kraft, we did meet the other day. Thank you, Councilman Cassidy, for being with us. I really appreciated your views and your attention and spending time with us.
Courtney Larson, likewise, we met the other day. Nice to see you again.
All right. I'm Louisa Hunkerstorm. Nice to meet you. Councilmember Cassidy, nice to see all the rest of you. Just a quick reminder, we're the Energy and Environment Task Force. We're a volunteer group, city council adjacent. We advise the city council on matters of environmental stewardship, saving money, energy efficiency.
And you were doing so well with the quips. Still doing well with those. All right.
Got your back.
Okay, did we leave off with you, Louisa? Yes. Okay, I'm Kara Kolovich. I'm with the Energy and Environment Task Force.
And I'm Adam Kife, and I'm in the same group. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to be doing most of the talking today, but we all worked on this together in addition to working with Ann Even and a couple other city staff. So what we have in front of you today is we're talking about energy resilience and cost savings at this facility for City Hall and Police Station. Okay, there it goes, just a little bit of a lag time. We've already introduced ourselves, but our mission here at the ENE Task Force is to help the city save money, lower energy burden, reduce emissions, and prevent environmental harm from operations. We're going to be proposing a solar and battery project for you today, and really what we're looking for is a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the idea of this project. If we receive a thumbs up, we will pursue grant applications and start the ball rolling on that and try and dive deeper into the project specs. But if we receive a thumbs down, you're not interested, we won't waste our energy in pursuing those pathways and would just like to know up front. So this opportunity really started last year when the city of Lander was chosen. We applied for a National Renewable Energy Laboratory cohort called Enhancing Resilience at Critical Municipal Facilities. And it was specifically looking at how solar, storage, and microgrids could help city facilities be more resilient. So Ann and I went through a 6-month process with NREL, and we were doing this with other peer communities. And we also had experts in the renewable energy industry through NREL scope and size a system for solar and batteries for this facility. Then this spring, Rocky Mountain Power with their Blue Sky program, they fund renewable energy projects. They reached out to the city saying, hey, we have some extra funding. We know that our application period is officially closed, but if you have any facilities that would be applicable for solar and battery, we encourage you to apply. So that's what we're looking into right now. The problem as we see it is Rocky Mountain Power has already increased their energy costs, and we all know that they're proposing to do that more in the future. This facility in particular has had issues with resilience in energy outages before power outages. So we want to address that. And then within that, this facility also is a critical facility in that it serves the internet connection for many other city facilities. So if the power does go out, it has a rippling effect. The proposed solution, obviously, we have in front of you today is that solar and battery backup, and we'll explain why we chose that technology. So this facility is built on what's called a demand use billing, and that means you have a very low energy cost rate for what is here in this graph of the gray. So very low cost of energy use. But then during the peak 15 minutes of use that you have during a month, you have an extremely large charge for that 15 minutes of use. So in 2024, demand charges at this facility accounted for about 54% of that facility's electricity costs. If you use solar and battery, you can curb some of that peak of the demand use. So instead of say 23 kilowatts and being charged at that rate, you might be charged at 20 or 18 kilowatts. So we're not going to get rid of demand charges, but we're reducing them by using batteries. As we all know, we've already experienced some increases in charges. Here I have it broken out between demand charges and energy charges. So based on your total 2024 energy use, these changes happen incrementally in 2024. But if you just total the energy use, it was about $1,200 increase for this facility. And while that's not a lot for one facility. If you multiply it across all of the city's facilities, that starts to be felt across the board. Something that I just wanted to note, that little star up in the corner, is that our group has always been interested in better energy tracking at our facilities for improved energy efficiency. And those systems cost money to install. But an added benefit of having solar is that it comes with energy tracking. So not only would we be improving energy supply to this building, but in the future, we might be able to pin down some opportunities for increased energy efficiency and energy savings. All right, now into the backup power. So our current system at this facility is a 20 kilowatt natural gas generator. And that generator is the one that did not operate as planned during one of the 2023 outages. I was not in this facility and do not have that history, but I know that Ann, even who I've been working with, and Chief Peters, when he was here, had told us about that experience. So the generator is only activated during power outages. And then the proposed system here, we're going to still use that natural gas generator, but have a redundant system with a battery and some solar. And the battery can work in conjunction with the generator and add that redundancy for the critical facility here. The batteries last 10 to 15 years and are recyclable, because that's a question that I get a lot. What is being backed up is police surveillance equipment, the central internet communications at City Hall, and lights and evacuation signs. Oops. You sure can.
You said here that the batteries last 10 to 15 years and are recyclable. That's great. What is the cost of those batteries? Councilman Hahn just scared the liver out of me this evening.
I was gonna say that they about 8 to 10, because mine just filled at 8.
Yeah, and Rocky Mountain Power is, so I don't have it off the top of my head how much those cost, but we can get that to you if you want us to proceed with this project. But they're initiating a new, it's an existing program in Utah, but they haven't started it here in Wyoming. And our facilities would be one of the first to be part of this called Watt Smart Battery Program. And so they do have incentives for enrolling in battery backup. The enrollment incentive is much better than their participating monthly incentive, but they do have some financial help. I think this is honestly, Adam's going to be talking about some of the savings here, but that's maybe something where you put aside some money for a replacement fund with some of those savings. Yeah. All right. This is kind of embedded in the backup discussion, but I just really want to emphasize that this is a critical facility here, in that your central internet does connect to other facilities, and power bumps or power loss does have impact to those facilities. So for example, the SCADA system at the water treatment plant, I've heard from Hunter that is connected, and that has tendency to be affected by City Hall.
We've had even the small little power bumps that we've had in the middle of the night tweak that system.
Yeah. And so batteries would be able to help stabilize that. And with this next, I'm going to give myself a water break and hand it over to Adam.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm going to talk about the hard numbers, which is what I'm sure all of you are most interested in. We do have a quote. We went out for a quote with a local solar installer. So we do have some firm numbers. They'll probably be tweaked around a little bit. I would say they're plus or minus a few percent, just as we get closer to a final design. So if we even proceed. So the total upfront cost is a little over, it's right around $133,000. That's the absolute cost. Now, through the Blue Sky program is intended to fund most of this cost. So one way or the other, we're going to get roughly 80% covered, whether that's through 50% Blue Sky or 55% Blue Sky, plus the investment tax credit. Or if we don't have the investment tax credit, Blue Sky is more likely to fund us up to the full 80% themselves. That brings the upfront cost down to depending on some minor variables, $26,000 or $27,000. We're confident that we have some private funding sources as well. We know that LCAN is willing to go in on this, as well as we believe the Lohr Foundation. If we split that cost down to 1/3, that puts the final bill to the city on this total system at about $9,000. So that's what the capital expenditure looks like. If we are looking at annual costs, the annual savings of the system is predicted to be right around $4,200 savings to the city. We did request that they provide a number for operations and maintenance. They put forward a number that's $750 per year. That's probably not going to be every year, right? Like that's more of a saving up for replacements when something does fail 10 years down the line. It's not necessarily a every year this needs maintenance. You're not really going to see a lot of staff hours in it every year. These systems are generally pretty set it and forget it. So with that being said, with that $9,000 upfront cost at a $4,200 savings and then a potential $750 of maintenance, you're looking at, without the maintenance, you're looking at under 2.5 years for payback time, after which point everything is just savings for the city on annual electricity bills. With the operations and maintenance cost estimate there, you're looking right around 3 years before you've paid back the system in savings. Everything after that is saved money.
So a question for me, you've talked about the battery lifespan, but what's the panel lifespan these days?
The actual panels on the solar array, those have a warranty for 25 years these days. Now, the most recent, last 10 years worth of panels haven't been around long enough. Right now they're showing much less degradation than was predicted. We're looking at probably more like 30 or 35 years, potentially 40 if you let them lose a bit more efficiency. But they're kind of a long term. The panels themselves and a lot of the other equipment is pretty long term.
Thank you. Councilmember Han.
Yeah, our solar panels are going 27, 25 years. And they were the early model. They're still working good. I'll bet you the new panels, because ours are 135 watt. Now they're making almost 400 watt. I'll bet you 30, definitely 30 plus.
And I have a similar experience with the ones on my house.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what's the, how do these hold up during hailstorms? And I mean, are they pretty?
I asked that question before I got them myself for my personal system, and there's not really any credible documented cases. There might be one in the state of Wyoming where there was a panel, even just one, damaged by hail. It takes a very large strike because this is tempered glass. There were some others that might have actually been blowing rocks, before somebody who lived near a cliff, but it's really rather uncommon for there to be any damage. And if there is, it's probably one of your panels on your total of, I believe, I can't remember how many were quoted here, but it is over 30.
These would be installed up on the roof of the building here. We've got the proper facing of the southern facing.
Absolutely. The rooftop here is really quite opportune.
Okay.
Councilman Josh Han.
So the cheapest part of the whole system is the panels. Is that pretty much correct? Yes.
Yes.
And they're the longest lasting out of everything. And the batteries are the most expensive besides the control panel and your let's see, I can't.
Yeah, the
think of
inverter, the
terminology.
inverter
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
that's pretty much correct. I believe Blue Sky wants to see batteries.
Yeah, they won't fund anything that's just solar anymore. They need
Right.
batteries and solar.
So the longevity, yeah, I know we deal with them at like work and stuff with, the mobile signboards state has and stuff, like we deal with those and stuff, and the batteries, I mean, they do 8 years to 10, I mean, depending, and they're not cheap, they're super expensive. What's the hazardous side effects of the batteries themselves? Do they off gas? I don't know a lot about the batteries. Are they off gassing? Are they sealed? They're all deep cycle, like a deep cycle battery, correct?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about off-gassing.
I haven't heard any of those threats. I haven't heard of any flames or combustion issues as of late.
Yeah.
The technology is continually getting better. That's all I really
Right.
know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and with this like $4,000 of savings annually and a 2.5-year payback, that's where you can start saving for that battery replacement too, along with the Rocky Mountain Power incentive that you'll receive.
I guess just one detail to add to these numbers is that that quote includes a very large battery, even by what we were considering. There's potential that this cost could go down. We don't know by how much if we opt for something not as hefty of a battery.
Okay. So these are the contributors for this project that we've talked to so far. Obviously, the Rocky Mountain Power Blue Sky program, who reached out to us in the first place, and their incentive is they want the batteries in there to help stabilize the grid. So when there is need, they can tap into our battery, but they'll have an agreement that we sign about for how much time they can use it. So they'll be transparent about that. Land or Climate Action Network, obviously, they want to see reduced emissions in town. And the Lore Foundation, they're really incentivized by the community resilience aspect of this project. So you have already that what we've reached out to in the community, strong support for this project if you do go through with it. And then I know you all haven't adopted the master plan or strategic plan, but I did want to kind of create a through line for how this project would tie in. In the master plan, it helps with the resilient infrastructure and expanding solar energy. And then in the strategic plan, maximizing cost-effective use of city resources, maintaining law enforcement services, disaster preparedness, and pursuing public safety. So with that, do you all have any other questions? And again, all we're looking for at this point is a general thumbs up or thumbs down of if we should pursue, and then we come back to you with a more formalized cost estimate and plan for this facility.
Mayor. Mayor,
Councilmember Cassidy, yeah.
Just two questions for you. If we can go backwards on a couple of slides to where you talk about what's being backed up. Could we dig a little bit into that? What you talked about, the control, the central internet, is there voice over IP that's used here as a backup? Can we just dig a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, so this is where I might need to pull in Lance or some other people, but what I've heard is that there was a microwave internet system that's based out of here and that feeds to the other facilities.
That's correct. So we have fiber that comes into this building, and then we have a firewall, and then splitting internet into different virtual networks at this location. And so SCADA is on its own network, PD's on its own network, City Hall, Public Works, but it's all based off of using the land or landfill tower. So we shoot everything up to land or landfill, and then we have our connectivity of different buildings that go through there. So this is the centralized hub. I was also going to throw in that we're going to have to do something regardless, because what's happened is that we didn't set up the right transfer to begin with our power. And so it's pretty much just get you out of the building and lights come on, and that's all that the generator is being used for. So there's a major electrical upgrade that has to happen either way to get the generator to be reconfigured. We've been talking to an electrician to make sure that servers, different rooms, computers we don't want going off stay on versus what's happening right now, which is all of those went off in a major power failure. So I think this project helps do that as well, right, Kara? That you're going to get
Yes.
the electrical wiring done and the building back up, things that need to be on that system on it correctly.
Yep, that's the intent.
So it's accurate to say that there's no continuity of operations if you flip the switches on this building. Is that correct? That you cannot run any of the critical infrastructure in the city if you shut this building down?
Correct. I think that at this point, there is some secondary backup at certain places. So water treatment plant fails over to another system. Public Works then could run a separate system that has the secondary backup out of that. So we backfeed essentially when this building goes out, but there are some secondary, not as good ways of doing this that provide that. But it is requiring somebody to manually go in, switch cables over and provide things differently.
And all of those are probably very short duration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So also within this proposal, and I think this might have been what you were addressing, so you're going to have to tie 3 energy sources together. Remember, is that correct? Shore power, this, and natural gas?
Yeah, that's more or less.
And
the
all,
gist of it.
and the, doing that is covered under this entirely? Or is this purely
Like you
solar?
mean when there is a power outage, it would trigger correctly?
No,
or-
in installation and upgrade. That's what I'm talking specifically.
In the cost you're talking about.
Yes.
So that's something we'd have to dive deeper in with Creative Energies because they gave us this quote saying that this battery could back up everything. And we have the opportunity to maybe scale down that battery size if we can reconfigure it to all meld together. So I think that's something that we'd have to work with them a little bit more on, but we've communicated that that is what we want.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't shore power and solar, not including, this cost doesn't cover, also making sure that that natural gas system is tied into that so that we don't find that, oh, this third energy source is an extra X number of dollars that we didn't foresee.
And my understanding is yes, so, because once we break out those circuits and then you have to have them backed up, it's very easy to then take the generator and keep it as a backup. We also talked about, is it adequately sized from our electrician? That was our other concern, to provide that backup as well. We had places where we could move this one and look at another one at that point. So I think from the city's perspective, that having natural gas as part of this operation is still what we're trying to do.
And my final question.
Yeah.
Lithium cells inside of a building when the building burns, what's the protocol? Thank you.
I would say just from knowledge of training, you let it burn. You can try and use a smother blanket on them to keep it contained. It's just like the solar cars. You don't screw with them. You definitely don't shoot water on them. I have a question as well, ma'am. So this is a grant, correct?
Yes, Blue Sky, the Rocky Mountain Power Blue Sky. would be
Okay,
a
so
grant.
is there a match or a payment that has to go with that? Just that 9,000 that you came up with at the end, is that the?
Here, let me go to that slide. Okay, so this 24 to 27,000, that's what would be left for the city after the Blue Sky. However, then we have that cost share with local organizations, and they would be willing to cost match that with the city.
Break it down
So
to
split it into
9.
thirds.
Okay. And then kind of going off what you said, where would these batteries be stored? You don't want them inside the building.
Well, we did have Creative Energies come and do a tour of the facility just so that they could say whether batteries could be here or not. And so they did find a spot. It is inside. It's in the police department side of the building.
Oh, torch to the PD. That's
Yeah. Yeah. And that was due to the access to the meter and other electrical going through that part of the building.
Because this isn't finalized, we're nowhere near final, right? We could always, if we go forward, request for that battery location to be elsewhere. It could potentially be a cost increase.
It would probably be a cost increase, but that's just something to be aware of. And we don't know at this point whether these batteries can or should be stored outside, or if you need to create another structure around them to prevent weatherization impacts. But we can look into that if that is something that you all would like.
Other questions?
Mayor, I'll make a comment because I think some of my questions have been answered, and you all know I've been in a lot of meetings with these folks who do incredible research, so don't have a lot of questions at this stage. But the payback period is astonishing, right? Like, have you ever seen a 2 to 3 year payback period on something like this? So the cost savings are real. The skin in the game for the city is pretty minimal. I'd be pretty excited to see this application go forward, and we'll vote on it when it actually does and see if Rocky Mountain Power comes back with a good answer for us. So thank you.
Yeah, it's nice that Rocky Mountain Power initiated this conversation. It's not often that they're trying to find a place to set up a system. That's awesome. So with that, can folks give the ENE group a sense of where you're at with it? Thumb up, thumb down, and give them some direction about where to go. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to y'all for all of your effort for this. Quick question for council, because we have been here for a little bit and we still have a topic coming up that's probably on the longer side. Do we need to take a short break before we dive in? Or can folks power through? Tough it out? Okay. So next up is proposed Lander Municipal Code Title II changes, discussion on the liquor license changes. So who gets to go first on this one?
Rochelle did a great job tonight voluntelling people in the absence of Regine and Shari. So good job. Council, the Title II changes that are going to come before you, if you go back to last year when we were visiting renewing liquor licenses within our community, we ran into one specifically that was problematic, and it was narrowed down to a simple yes or no by each one of you with some background. And if my memory recalls right, it was Councilman Josh Hahn that, wanted a little bit more research and how do we separate it out. So what we've done, quite frankly, Regine and Rochelle have done most of the typing and work on it, mostly because she's a lawyer, so that's helpful. But what we've done is designed a new Title II ordinance where there's steps in the process of a demerit system with each one of these license holders. So if they do violate the city ordinance, the first offense is a fee. If they violate it a second time in a window of an opportunity, the fee continues to go up over time. So we've set in kind of a process where we can take steps to repair and help these people become successful instead of just a blanket, we're taking your business away from you. Some of the other things that we've added in this ordinance is requirements by these business owners for their staff that are serving alcohol to people, that they will be required to go through a TIPS training. It's a training that's put on that is best practices with service, how to identify people that have had too much, when it's your responsibility to cut them off and be done. One thing that we've also done preemptively is I have 2 of my staff that are going through the TIPS training right now to where we as the city, namely the police department, can step forward ahead of this and provide free training to our business holders for their staff. We will put the training on free at the police department where they can come, or if we use our great community center, if the class sizes are big enough, so we can help all of them meet these standards that we as the city are bringing forward. We've put in some verbiage in there that they're required to notify us when they do remove people from their establishment. The main basis of that, to be quite frank with you, is historically, if a patron is removed from one entity, they just move on to the next one. So by them being required to notify us when they remove people, we get out ahead of that from the police department so we can fix the problem so it doesn't move from bar to bar to bar. I know Councilwoman Stubble had a conversation, but I personally had a conversation with the owner of the Lander Bar about this is what we're looking at in the future, and what does it look like to you? What does it mean to you if these things come down the line? And quite frankly, walking through it with him, he already does most of these things, not all of them, most of them, but he was completely on board and understood why. Our ultimate goal is to make our businesses in our community successful, but if you're going to be serving alcohol, you should be following the same standards and doing the same thing. So I've got zero negative feedback, to be quite frank with you. We've put a lot of work into this. Again, more Rochelle and Regine than myself. But a lot of the verbiage is to start putting step processes in where, I mean, we're still currently dealing with the one, to be quite frank with you, that was maybe a yes or a no or a table from the last one. And it's, to be quite frank with you, it's been an absolute nightmare of what we as the city can do moving forward outside of just a blanket yes or no once a year. Rochelle's added a very large amount of the state statute and verbiage into our ordinance. That in the past, we've had statements of to follow Wyoming state statute, and that was just the end of it, right? There was no, this is what the statute actually says. This is what you actually have to do. The failure is if we try and make them read 4 or 5 different locations of what their rules are, it's unfair, almost impossible for them to completely understand. So we've added a lot of that into our ordinance of this is the rule by Wyoming state statute, and this is what it says. So they only really have to go to one place to figure out, these are all the rules, these are all the regulations, and this is what you have to do.
And that is a double-edged sword. So when the statute changes, somebody has to be watching that to update our ordinances, and it'll take 3 readings. But it's been my experience that nobody's going to the statute to see what the rules are. So as a clerk, you may send them a copy of the statute when you communicate with them, when it's time to renew, when they get it, but nobody's looking at it. So that's one reason we wanted to pull some of the current state statutes and flesh this out a little bit more. I apologize, it sort of looks like a battleground. One thing I would like to draw your attention to is the definition section. I really tried to pull more of those out of the state statute. I wouldn't anticipate definitions are going to change, but operational in particular, which is, it's an interesting definition. I pulled just this flat words from the statute in connection with a slightly different area, meaning that liquor licenses, all of them have to be operational. They have to offer for sale on an ongoing weekly basis to the general public, the alcohol, liquor, or malt beverages, whatever their license provides for. And yeah, let me.
Or can you give us the number?
Number 23 in the packet, if that's helpful. I think, according to my gray.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
and operational is I. Now, this council could choose to further refine that. Some communities do that. I think it's Powell, for example, that requires operational to be at least 3 days a week. Right now, we fall back on this default definition because we don't have anything further guiding us.
One thing I think that's important for all of you to know up there, one of the things that we have found in digging into liquor licenses in the state of Wyoming is all of them are governed by the Department of Revenue. And what's came out of this is anytime you lean on the Department of Revenue for assistance in taking action, it's an absolute stonewall. The quite frank answer is you guys are the licensing authority, so that's your problem, not ours. So some of this, it looks a little bit long and very full of verbiage and lengthy. The intent is to get that into our ordinance to where we as the city now have action where we can, right? If we just refer to a blanket Wyoming state statute, we have to rely on the Department of Revenue really to help us. And quite frankly, they're just not going to. So we've included a very large amount of verbiage in this, so we as the city have a plan and we have the ability to take action.
Councilman Hahn.
So say this changes, as this changes, do all of the establishments in town, do they get this, do we send this information to them? Do we get this information to them so they see all the different changes?
Yes, they will. To be honest with you, sir, my intent would be to invite all of them to one unified meeting to where we can sit and explain to them, these are the changes. And I really think for 80% or more of our businesses, it's going to be little to no effect on them, quite frankly. The biggest one, honestly, would be the required of tips training, the requirement of your servers to be trained in doing this. And we have to give, like anything, when a law or an ordinance changes, we have to give a comfort zone of whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, right? But the intent is to sit down with them and say, look, this is what's coming at you. These are the changes. This is why. How can we help you get there? And what do you need from us that you don't understand?
I tell you what, it will definitely solve a lot of problems on this side.
Right. And that's our,
When things happen, they usually end up in some of our laps.
well, and I
so
think we've
that-
learned that a lot, right? In the last 6 months with the passing of Mayor Richardson, we've ended up in these windows of now all this stuff's in our lap and there's no direction or guidance.
Yeah.
So ultimately, our intent was that everybody operates the same, everybody falls under the same rules. There's a demerit system, there's steps in the process of how we move forward and what we have to do with you when you're in violation of such. We moved away from, we referenced Powell, Sheridan, and a couple other communities, and realistically, theirs get pretty down deep into the weeds, right? Like Powell, Wyoming does not allow happy hour ever. I don't think we as a city want to be there in an operational control per se of what you can and can't do operationally. I just think we have to have something where we can take steps as the city of when you are not complying, there's a merit system and where we go. And when it comes back to you again, it's easier for me to say, they demerited here, 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 and this is how by our ordinance versus we've had 27 calls and 9 are, within 6 months. That doesn't mean anything if you don't know the details of it. And I think that's where we ended up with Councilman Josh Hahn, right? Like, what are the details of the calls?
Well,
So-
and the city being good stewards,
Yeah.
I think it'll work better for everybody, including the police department. They know that it's not just about trying to go out and hammer somebody. It's like, let's work together and try to solve the problems together.
Well, and that's very much my stance at the police department since I've been there. And when I interviewed as the captain, it's we. How do we fix this for our community, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anybody's business license away. I don't want anybody to fail in their business. This is my role in the city right now and how to help you be successful. But we have to do this together. And in turn, now we have very clear-cut stipulations of this is what's required.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say thanks to all the folks who put in a lot of work on this. We can't enforce folks being over the line when we don't have that line well defined. And this gives us a lot more specificity in where that line is. So other comments, questions?
Mayor, if I may, I'll echo the thanks as well and all the work here in bringing this bit more modernized. I'll say what I really like, we've talked about the ability to take more action. I like that quite a bit. What I like too is the shift in philosophy here in that we can take more action for those very rare, very few bad actors where there's right now no or very little accountability to the license holder, right? So this is a shift that right now we can take action against the server who overserves, right? We can do that consistently, but we're not taking action against the business owner who might be encouraging that, who might be turning a blind eye to that, who might not be training that, who might not be, saying, don't card, it slows down business. And so this shifts some accountability and responsibility to those license holders. And that might be not to be the legal term here, but I would call this a privilege to be able to operate this kind of a business and license in Lander. We want it to be safe. We want it to thrive. It's part of our economy. But we want it to be done within set standards of safety and to be aligned with the type of community we are. And so I really like that we have the tools now for individuals, employees who might be out of compliance with the law, but it's going after the culture of that establishment set by the business owner and license holder who might now be, is lacking in accountability until we make these changes. So I like a lot in here too. It's makes a ton of sense. I do have a very specific line item question if I could. And I think, Rochelle, it's on there's no page numbers on the version I'm looking at, but 12. And it's where we enumerate the demerits system, the violations and the demerits.
Can you give us not the page number, but the
Oh, yeah,
section?
that's great. I can do that.
Please.
We're 2.3.1, the demerit point values for alcoholic beverage violations.
And that starts on page 30 in the packet.
Thank you. Perfect. 12 in the standalone document, I think. It has a lot of different violations that are enumerated. I don't see one for bar and grill licenses. We have other types of resort retail license violation, restaurant. That might just be an omission? Bar and grill is not like a subset of one of those other ones, is it?
No, I think if you
No.
go back, the way we designed the new Title II is in the beginning of it, it makes a pretty broad statement of these are the rules that apply to every type of license.
Okay.
So we didn't have to break down, each license had a different set of rules. I think we have a broad paragraph or whatever it is in the beginning that says this is the new rules for all of you, regardless of what type of license you have.
That's great. No, that is there and it would cover this, but if we do have a list detailing them out, Rochelle, should we make sure bar and grill is on there too?
I will double check that.
Great, thank you. Great. Love the direction it's going. Yeah, it's going to give us a lot more tools, accountability, and frankly, provide for a much better community. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, not just the work that's gone into it and us being able to find the line, but I'll reiterate what Interim Chief Wall said, that State Liquor Division is not particularly helpful in trying to manage our local scene, asking, well, are folks in compliance? I don't know, go ask them. Like that's what we get to do. So that doesn't really, it's one of those circular arguments of that's not what we're asking. We want to know, is this being reported? We don't know. You'll have to go ask those folks. That's really not helpful for us trying to make sure folks are in compliance. So yes, Councilman Josh Hahn.
How does the Brew Fest fall into this? Just
So the
It
Brew
was in-
Fest is a creature that is interesting. So what has happened traditionally is that they are operating off of a malt beverage permit. So a malt beverage permit can be applied for by any responsible person or organization. So the chamber, as a responsible person or organization, comes in and asks for a malt beverage permit, allowing them to put on an event. Because they are having breweries come, they have to ask for those breweries to be able to donate the alcohol because breweries are industry representatives. So that's where we have seen recently the request that the council okay that. There are very limited circumstances under which that can happen under the state statute, but it fits that situation. Now, Wyoming law requires that any out-of-state breweries get something called a territorial assignment to be allowed to distribute their beer in the state of Wyoming. Colorado doesn't have that. Anyone can show up in Colorado and participate in a beer fest without any sort of assignments. So having to make sure that that has happened. Now the brew fest has included the distilleries, the hard alcohol. So that's kind of another layer because the only way that that can happen is if there's like a catering permit involved. And a catering permit is sort of misleading. It doesn't have anything to do with food in this sense. It has to do with being able to sell anything other than beer that's alcoholic. So what has happened is somehow the Lander group, because they have, I think it's Coulter Block, has a retail license. And so they apply for the umbrella license and the in-state distillers are under their wares because only a retail license or a resort holder like Cal Case used to have can get the catering permit. No one else can have a catering permit. I don't know if that answered your question.
just kind of black and white for you, sir. You and I think a lot alike. So I will offer this side of it from a law enforcement perspective. The Brew Fest for us falls in a different realm in the sense of these are business owners promoting their business, right? It's not come here and drink all the beer you want. It's not free for all. It's not buy. Like it's very small samples and they're really trying to sell their business. It's not, it would be similar to if you went to a dirt bike convention and they just gave you free reign of the dirt bike and said, ride it. Like that's not a thing. Law enforcement perspective wise, we have minimal problems with the Brewfest specifically. Most of our problems come from falling out of the Brewfest into our other entities in town, if that helps you at all.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah. With regards to the types of violations and the point values that were assigned to those, if we categorize these violations as risks, were those point values assigned based on likelihood or severity or something else?
Honestly, those point values were sort of, yeah.
Arbitrary. Sure.
Plagiarized. Was it Powell or is this Sheridan's?
This is a Sheridan-based one, and it's no secret that's where I came from. It's just one that I'm very comfortable with, and I know how it operated for us. So we just kind of set the standard because it's new here, right? So we don't have a North Star, if you will. We just take a known fee schedule that works somewhere else for right now to put into our fee schedule of what it looks like. And again, our ultimate goal is the historic of this is every time someone gets charged with over service, serving a minor, they're fired the next day, generally, and there's no fallback on the owner or the liquor license holder. So our intent is to put some of it on them so they will start being more careful of what they allow.
So in the verbiage, it talks about like one instance is one accumulation of demerits, right? So if this was to be enacted, you would assume that there would probably be a pretty steep learning curve with a large accumulation of demerits very quickly, and then word will spread. So I'd like to kind of wrestle with that and understand what that would look like, anticipate that. And then if we had to assign those point values based on something, I would kind of make a recommendation that it would be severity to the public, not likelihood, public intoxication or something likely, severity of injuring somebody or anything on the list that we would see would have a high risk to the population, then it would be, those numbers might be moved around based on our analysis,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And as you can see, I have the city code section or chapter cross-referencing. Those are blank. This is a work in progress, and I'm happy to continue to work on it and bring another marked up copy, but also perhaps a clean copy so that it might be easier to read in its entirety and flow.
Other comments, questions?
Mayor, one for
Okay.
you. Are you thinking that we'll go into, it's 3 readings for this kind of change, an ordinance change, June 10th, or do you think we take some more time to deliberate? And I don't know if you're available for the June 10th, if that's too fast, but.
I am here for every meeting.
Thank you.
Living the dream right there. I would love to see it be able to be on the June 10th for first reading. Likewise, can I get kind of thumbs up,
Public hearing.
thumbs down from folks about being able to get this moving? And again, it doesn't mean that it's set in stone, but at least a big step forward.
Yeah, agreed. And a follow-up, Mayor, if I could, Interim Chief Wah, would that be enough time for you to have that gathering you mentioned of the license holders? It doesn't have to be, I guess, because with 3 readings, we have time to workshop it, but.
Well, and that's, my brain was working through it. I think June 10th is fine. I just think I need to start moving forward, to start putting out, we would like to have a meeting. This is what's coming and this is why. I think as long as we afford the license holders in the community to have ample time to have public comment or whatever it is, I think we're fine.
Great. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, with that,
Mayor,
oh,
I got an email, I would have updated you had I read it anytime other than just the 10 minutes ago. But the FEMA appeal that we went through on the project for 250,000 was successful. So
nice.
money that we'll get back from FEMA for our
This is the
previous project.
2017 flood.
Yep, 2017. So they're telling us they're going to close that one out and write us a big check for it. So that's a good
Sweet.
news.
Yeah.
I would like to circle back about the June 10th. I need to publish notice of a public hearing for 2 weeks prior to so that may not give us quite enough time
Oh,
to do
okay.
that because it's 2 weeks
Okay.
exactly from today, so it won't get in the newspaper. So we may have to push that to July. But I will see what I can do. We'll give them, July is most likely where we'll be able to do
Okay.
our first reading. I
Yep.
would like a little bit of guidance from council, though, on how you would like the definition of operational. If it's good as it is, just on a weekly, or if somebody thinks there should be a 3 times a week kind of parameter added in there. I didn't know what council's feelings were on that. I didn't want to get too. Weekly is vague.
Yeah, and again, can you give us the page number of the 23-page doc?
Yeah,
It's
that was council member.
Got it. Yeah, operational means offering for sale on
Here's
a,
why that's important. All liquor licenses have to be operational. If they're not operational, they're not allowed to be renewed by state statute. So come January, when we do that again, if they're not operational, this council can't renew it unless they've gone through a formal process to park it, which they can do one time. They also, if they're a retail license holder, they also are not allowed to come in and get a catering permit that we just talked about. So if I had some guidance on what this council wanted that to look like, that would be really helpful. If it's once a week, that's great with me. I don't really mean to dictate what that's looked like. I just wanted to know what this council thought that should look like.
are most of these places physical spaces or? I mean, it seems like number of hours per week being open to the public. Is that the kind of guidance that would be helpful, or is it more, give me a call and I'll look at the door?
Said you had to be open 3 days a week for 4 hours a day. That kind of thing. I'm good with once a week if that's what we want to go with. I just want to know before I make too many changes. Could be if you go with that
Right.
potential.
I mean, right now it's operational. It's like, hey, give me a call and, I'm open to a call. So that means I'm operational, which seems,
Mayor, if I may add,
Very
I
broad.
think there's needs to be some thought put into this because we currently are sitting with probably 2 retail licenses that legitimately should be parked and are not because our restriction is 1 day a week. So if they just go down there and unlock the door for a couple hours and then leave again, they're not using the license for what it's for. And there's other entities that really, I think the last one we spoke with was the wood-fired pizza guy that's looking for a brick and mortar that really wants to open a store. And if we have potential for those full retail licenses to be issued to somebody else to a benefit, this would be our route to go about it, what your operational requirements are. And so if it is 3 days a week for whatever it is, there needs to be a little bit of meat in this one too, I think.
And because we pushed it to July, happy to revisit this conversation and if somebody else wants to email me or we can talk about it in the next meeting, I'm fine with that.
I know for me, I'd have to give that some thought about how to make that something that's feasible for a liquor license holder and likewise enforceable for that.
And seasonal is a different kettle of fish. Across Wyoming, you often see licenses that are only open and operate for 3 months of the year, and that's completely allowable. And
Wow.
so there's a lot of variation. I just need direction on what you want me to look at.
Well, here's where I'm wondering if plagiarizing again is helpful, are there communities that have more functional definitions of operational that we could look at and amend to our own needs, if not
I will-
outright plagiarize?
I will provide several samples and email them out to everybody and they can take a look at that. And I have been operating off of this definition because it's the only thing,
That's what
we don't have anything in our code. It's the default definition in part of the state statutes. So that's what we're doing now. We can continue with that, or now would be your opportunity to change it if you wanted.
Any other comments, questions? Move to adjourn. Actually, since it's work session, we don't actually have to. I would say, let me change that to let's adjourn since it's a work session. Good night, y'all.